Hello everybody and welcome to our latest live video. Sorry, I forgot to turn a light on. It's Sunday and it is the 16th of February, 2025. My name is Kerry Holzman and yeah, I turned my mic on a little early there. That's okay. I was trying to avoid having to run back to go turn the light on. All right, well, geez, guess I was rushing a little too much today. Welcome in, good to see everybody, and today I've got a laptop that's an Asus Vivobook that, I think we reviewed it on Amazon in 2022, and of course, many of you are familiar with my friend Subaru Mike. He is not a computer person or a phone person. He absolutely despises them. He's frustrated by them constantly, and refuses to accept any help from anybody. He's got a lot of sense of pride and will often get very frustrated and angry at the device and, of course, blame the device. So when he needed a laptop, I want to help him. He's my friend. And I said, well, you can review a laptop for me, but I said it's kind of a high-end laptop. And he kind of scoffed at that, like, what's that supposed to mean? And I said, well, it just requires a little bit more maintenance, a little more care. It's powerful. So, you know, oh, it's too powerful for me. Well, it's just that it requires more maintenance and more care. And so if you're somebody that just wants to turn it on, use it, and slam the lid closed, this probably is not ideal for you. Oh, that's just ridiculous. I'll take the laptop. Okay, so, and of course, the first couple months are, hey, this thing is great. And then about a year goes by and this thing's a piece of junk, right? Because there's no maintenance being done. So what ended up happening is he got a virus on it, and I went over there to help him, and this virus was a little tricky, and I said, you know, let's just reset it. And he watched how I went into the control panel and reset Windows. I wasn't trying to teach him. I was just trying to say, you know, like in a worst case scenario, this nukes it all out. And it's nothing I would do very light-handed or ordinary. It's nothing ordinary about it. And for whatever reason, the more you tell him not to do something, the more he wants to do it. So he remembers how to reset the laptop. So anytime he has the slightest problem, instead of giving me an opportunity to help correct it, he now just blows it out completely and resets it. So he's done that about twice. And I'm like, man, you shouldn't be doing that. And he's like, well, I fixed it. I said, well, I understand, but you have to set everything back up again. There's drivers and there's, you know, your emails. I don't care. I don't have anything on it. I don't care. It's your laptop, you know, you do whatever you want with it, but you know a guy who's a tech who could actually fix it. But every time you reset it, I don't know what was wrong, right? So I don't know if there's a part failing. I don't know that you're just not procrastinating something. You're just creating a longer problem. And he goes, well, it works fine now. And I said, okay, great. I'm glad to hear you fixed it. And if you have any other problems, you know a computer tech. That's all I'm saying. And I talked to him a few weeks later. This thing's a piece of junk. What's wrong with it? Well, I go to click on things, it doesn't copy and paste. It doesn't copy and paste. Well, you know, that could be a driver or something that's missing. I don't know. I'd have to take a look at it, because when you reset it like that, you know, that I advise you not to do, there's sometimes drivers and things that have to be installed for other things to work that aren't installed by default. And I go over there and take a look at it, and it's actually his mouse. He has beaten that mouse. It's the button just sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't work. And he goes, oh, I have a spare mouse. And he pulls out like a $3 mouse, and it won't track on the table. He's got to put like a piece of paper under it. But the other mouse, he didn't need to do that. And it's flimsy. You flex the mouse in your hand. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I got him a refurbished, Amazon's got a Marathon mouse. It's like a 2 or 3 year battery life, full size, you know, not a portable mouse, full size wireless mouse for $20 refurbished. I said, hey, listen, check your mail today. You're going to get an Amazon package. It's like, what'd you do? I said, I ordered you a mouse. You ordered me a mouse. Why would you do that? Because I'm your friend and I don't want to see you suffer with that. So I guess they sent him the mouse in like a plastic Mylar bag, and he's like, there's no protection on this thing. They just put it in a bag. And I go, you know what? It's a tough mouse. It's Logitech. I don't agree that they put it in a bag, but I'm sure it survived it just fine. And if not, let me know. It has a 30-day return. Just pop a couple batteries in it. Let me know if you can now copy and paste correctly. And he can. Okay. Everything's great. And then he calls me, goes, this thing's a piece of junk. I go, the mouse? No, the laptop. Well, what's going on with the laptop? Well, won't even turn on now. Doesn't turn on? You mean like there's no lights, there's no fans? Oh, this thing doesn't have any fans. Your laptop doesn't have any fans? He goes, no, I've never heard fans on this laptop. Never ever. It's completely silent. Okay. He goes, my other laptop, I'd hear it constantly. This one, never. I go, do you normally leave the laptop on at night, or do you normally turn it off? Oh, I just leave it on. Okay. Well, you know, when you leave it on, it's like a vacuum cleaner, right? And it's going to suck in all the dust and debris all night long. So maybe the fan's not turning. There's definitely fans in it. Or maybe the heat sinks are plugged up and it overheated. So what I'd advise you to do is unplug your power brick from the wall and just leave the laptop off for a while. And in the meantime, here's a mini PC and get you back up and running. And so far, everything's fine with the mini PC. And I said, let me stop by, let me pick up this laptop. Let me take a look at it, because, you know, it needs a little tune-up, a little maintenance from time to time. I usually recommend about every year or so. But if somebody won't let me do it, you know, what can I do? I consider Mike a very good friend of mine, and I do want to help him. And I guess he feels that in some way he's doing something wrong, or it makes him feel dumb. But I'm not telling him any of that information. He's like, he's inferring that somehow, where he feels like, I mean, he'd have to speak for himself, but what it seems like to me is it feels like he's a little offended that I'm offering help. But I'm trying to get in there before it gets worse. Like, he wants to exhaust every possible option to fix it himself and fails to realize that's very inconsiderate for me, because whatever I have to do to help, he's making it worse. He's making the help be more complex, more detailed, take more time. And his perspective seems to be, I'll ask for your help if I need it. But in the meantime, you know, if he fixes it, which in this case, just wipe it and reset it, it's not really a fix. Anytime you have to wipe and reset a computer, you don't know how to fix computers. Or there's some kind of virus or something you just want to be sure is off the system, some kind of malware, ransomware. That would be an exception, and only that. And that's okay if that's what you want to do. It's your equipment, but let's call it what it is, which is you don't know how to fix computers. And when you do that, any opportunity, if something is starting to fail, and those were your early warnings, you just wipe those out. And now somebody like me can't come in there and resolve it before it gets worse. So usually what happens is once you've done it once, you'll do it again. And every little thing that goes wrong, the quick fix is to just reset, especially if you're someone that's like, I don't have anything on there. He had a version of Office on here, it's gone. It has to be repurchased. And the frustrating part is, if you put it on there again and purchase it again, then you really need an Acronis image, but I would have to be the one to restore it. He doesn't understand that stuff, nor does he care. But then he'll say, well, I don't even need Office. And in the meantime, you know, he's got like Excel spreadsheets and stuff he can't open. So I'm scratching my head going, well, how does he open those, you know? So there are viewers, by the way. There are Word, Excel, PowerPoint viewers that are free. And I don't see those installed on the system. So again, because it was wiped, all that has to be put back on. So because the machine finally died, and like I said, once you reset it once and it solves your problem, you're likely going to reset it again So if the first reset occurred 18 months into ownership, the second reset occurred about 22 months into ownership, and then the third reset at 25 months. Like, it happens more frequently because something's likely failing. But on this last one, I think it was his mouse. So he reset this whole thing because of a mouse problem. And I share this information to give you real life examples of what typical customers do. It's not meant to embarrass anybody. It's not meant to suggest that they're somehow not calling anybody dumb. It's not the point. We're not making fun of anybody here. We're talking about a sincere and real problem that many end users, that is very common, do, that they will tell you themselves they're not technical people, right? They just want it to work, but they don't want to ask for help, and they want to solve it themselves, and they'll watch YouTube videos, maybe. I think in this example, we wouldn't be watching videos, but many people may just watch videos, and then they follow what some stranger on the internet tells them to do. And maybe it works and they pat themselves on the back, but there's a level of misunderstanding with everything they potentially did to get there, causing future consequences. Because there's no lack of understanding. It's more ritualizing. If I do this and I do that, I get this result. You ask them why. I don't know why. What do I care? I'm not a computer person. I just want the thing to work. And again, when you own your computer and that's how you want to deal with stuff, you have absolutely every right to do whatever you want. Don't let me get in your way. But I hate to see people suffer. I hate to see people needlessly struggle when a helping hand is being offered and it's being smacked away, and that by the time they finally do ask and accept that hand for help, that struggle to help, the help they need has now been multiplied many times over. What could have been a very simple, quick fix, potentially, is now more than likely far more complex. So it's not to discourage anybody from wanting to fix your own computer, but if you are going to, it's certainly helpful if you take some time to understand why that fixed your computer. If you have no interest in learning the why, then the problem is you also have no interest or consideration at what the possible consequences of the near future are going to be as a result of what you didn't understand. It's gonna likely have some consequences that you also won't understand, and you may not even tie those two things together. You just might think, this computer keeps failing and it's a bad computer. So, no. The computer failed for some reason, you reset it, then you had failure for another reason due to the reset, then you had a failure for another reason due to the mouse that had nothing to do with the computer. That's what I'm talking about, the understanding. And it's okay, you don't have to want to understand it, but if you're going to go into it like that, then at the very least, be aware that any future problems that you experience may have been caused by you. And if you just want to be done with it so it'll work, let somebody who has the experience and the expertise resolve it for you, somebody you know and you trust. Take that help if it's being offered, for crying out loud. Unless you want to learn how to do it yourself, which most of my clients have no interest in wanting to learn it. The idea is that, let me see if I can take care of this rather than call Carrie, because I can fix it faster if all I have to do is push these buttons. And if that doesn't work, and if this doesn't work, and then I'll call Carrie. And now I've got to undo everything they did plus the original problem. So here we are. The Asus Vivobook has been kept in really good shape. I mean, he pretty much puts it on the counter and plugs it in, and it pretty much stays there. He doesn't travel with it, and it looks like new. I'm looking at it for any dust or possible fan blockages. There should be a fan. You can kind of see one here and here. They look fine. I mean, sometimes the buildup will be between where the fan's blowing air out and where the heatsink is, which is going to be towards the back. And you have to remove the cover to see that. So maybe there's something in there. And maybe this laptop has no heat-related issue at all. And maybe it was something entirely different, like maybe the plug wasn't plugged in all the way. I mean, I don't know. but I thought this might make an interesting video because at the very least, this thing will need some maintenance. And it'll need the maintenance because it was reset. So everything that was done from removing unnecessary bloatware has to be done again. My optimization tool, VLC, I'll have to be put back on. We'll see if we can set them up with another copy of Office from our friends at SCD Keys, which offer, you know, very, very appealing prices for a guaranteed working, legitimate Microsoft Office or Windows key. And then maybe, just maybe, and I'm thinking about it, make an image of this with Acronis before I give it back to him, just to have in my pocket, you know, so I don't have to go through all of this again. And if there's still something wrong with it when we're done, if it still continues to act up, then it's going to require a further diagnostic. But at this point, we just want it to turn on, and then we'll go from there. So that's how we got here today. And I do appreciate that Mike has finally let me look at it, because I've been wondering. It's not a cheap laptop. This is one of those laptops that has two graphics cards. It's got the NVIDIA card, and it's got the built-in AMD Radeon, you know, and the APU. And it should be a rocket ship. It's only 2 years old, maybe 3 years old. And they don't make this laptop anymore, obviously. Nobody's building 3-year-old laptops anymore. But we can look at the web page from Asus on this, and even the Amazon page, to learn a little bit about just how powerful this laptop is and what makes it a little more complex than a normal laptop. Having 2 video cards in it, in my opinion, makes it a bit more complex. You don't just need one updated video driver that never gets updated. You now have 2. So let's take a look here in the chat. Say hello to everybody. Welcome in, welcome in. Where's my chat room? Hold on a second. I'm gonna get there. There it is. Okay. There's our friend Buster joining us with a 10-pound super chat. He says, hello, Carrie, Amara, everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Temperature in Edinburgh is 39 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 3.8 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that sounds a little chilly. Good to see you, Buster. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Mortant says hello, as does Eddie Casanova. I see Luke Greenia in there saying hello, and also Scott says hello. We also have Doman 2000 joining us from the Netherlands. David Graham joins us and says hello, as does Badger Gary Tatum. And Tapper 9876 says hello. There's our friend Mark Gaines from Northern Ireland jumping in the chat room, along with Shamim Kajviras saying hello. Daryl Loftus and our friend Charlie Purdy pop in and say hello. Charlie contributes a $10 super chat. He says hello, Carrie, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Welcome in, Charlie. Welcome in. Did I say Gary Tatum? Gary's there, along with Ben Laird and Frank Jimmy saying hello. William Denton says hello. Richard DeFries and Darren Gilholm are joining us. We have a worldwide audience here in the chat. And it's always good to see everybody that is a part of this amazing community we have. Such kind and supportive individuals. And we're certainly happy to have you here. Mecca Cameron says hello. Patrick T and John say hello. There's 10 pounds from Ben Laird. Thank you, Ben. Paul Howe says hello. Paul O'Brien renews membership, now a member for 20 months. He says, good evening from Ireland. Man, this jail sentence is a breeze. Thank God I'm not doing hard time. I don't know what that is. Hey, Paul, thank you for renewing your membership. He's now a member for 20 months. Can I help you with something?
Talking to me?
Yeah.
No, but I was hoping you'd get to what I was saying.
Oh, I'm scrolling.
Funny. That's funny.
I'm scrolling. I don't see it yet. Daryl Loftus says hello. Brian Rhodes joins us. Welcome in. Nicholas Barlow, hello. Gil Garcia. Porter MG says hello. Why am I not seeing? Oh, Planet Cryos with a $5 super chat said if you check the flux capacitor, it should be about 2.21 gigawatts.
You might be onto something.
Great Scott! Jason Wyrick says hello. Lana Dro says hello. And there's Dean Sermershine joining us, along with It's Just Me from Las Vegas. Philip Jones and Mark Kinney say hello. Galmus says good afternoon from Sosola in the Dominican Republic. Wow, I don't know that we've ever had anybody join us from the Dominican Republic before. That's cool. Ghostly Lurker says hello. There's Forrest, who says good evening from Palm Beach, Florida. Well, that doesn't sound like much of a forest. That's an Everglades. I kid. Andy Winbridge says hello. From the Netherlands. So many people from Ireland and Scotland and the Netherlands joining us here today. Right on. Now, scroll down a little bit here. I hope I said hello to everybody. If I missed you, it wasn't on purpose. Let me just move this aside. And anytime we have a customer complaint, right, as a tech, your very first job is to verify that complaint. So we have a machine that won't turn on, right? That's the issue. And it was instructed to unplug it and let it sit. And here we are. And we open up the lid here. I can figure out how to open the lid on a laptop. I guess it's facing you guys. But the writing on the lid is facing me. I guess that makes sense. Because when the lid's open, it says Vivobook. All right. Don't mind my confusion. We'll turn the power on. Well, we're off to a good start. Sometimes leaving a machine off, for whatever reason, it won't turn on. It solves a number of problems because if it's an overheating problem, it gives it time to cool. If it's an issue with a plug plugged all the way in, instead of advising a customer to check the plug, because they get really annoyed when you ask them that, just have them unplug it. Tell them to leave it unplugged for about 20 minutes at least. This forces them to physically unplug the cable and then plug it back in. It's like a little psychological game, but it doesn't resolve in as much resistance, right? People go, oh, all right, if that's what I need to do. Versus, is it plugged in? And what am I, stupid? Of course it's plugged in. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, it happens to the best of us. A plug is fallen out, or it's, I mean, it happens to me all the time, quite frankly, where I don't plug HDMI cables or Ethernet cables in. If you watch the show regularly, how many times am I not getting video when I turn on a computer and I can't figure out why? And I check and push in my HDMI cable and it goes in just a little bit more because I didn't push it in all the way. I'm a little too gentle with my cables. Same with the internet. Like, why isn't my internet working? And then I check the cable and click, oh, there it goes. It just went in a little bit more. So I don't, say that to accuse anybody. I say that to let people know this happens to us all. It's nothing to take as a personal affront to your intelligence. It's just a basic check, and we just want to always check these simple things first without making it personal. And I think that's the hardest part about fixing computers or guiding people to fix computers, is when you're explaining, or at least when I'm explaining, you need to do this, you need to do that. What they're hearing is, you're a dummy if you didn't know to do this and that. And it's very difficult for me to have such a coddling of somebody who's so sensitive to they're asking for help. When you offer them the help, they infer that you're suggesting they're dumb, which is not what I do. And I'm just trying to help them. And sometimes it depends on the personality of the person. Sometimes that frustrates them, and then of course I'm getting frustrated because from my perspective I'm not listening. Or, I'm sorry, they're not listening. I'm just telling you how to fix the computer. I'm not talking about you. Telling you what you need to do. And what they're hearing or inferring is, somehow insulting to them, which, again, I'm not telling somebody you're inferior or you're dumb. None of us were born with this knowledge. We learn it. And some people have no interest in learning it. They just want to know how to fix it. And I don't mind teaching people who want to learn. But what I don't like doing is somebody who thinks they already have the answers coming in and questioning my teaching. Like, why aren't you teaching? Why would you be attacking the teacher? If you think the teacher's teaching wrong, you should be teaching. And then we'd have a lot more variety on YouTube from people with different perspectives who, what I love about this job is there's lots of different ways you can go about diagnosing and resolving an issue. And it's like a cooking channel, what ingredients or the order of ingredients that a chef chooses to use in making the exact same dish as another chef who may make it with different ingredients or in a different order or prepare it in a different way. Neither one is wrong. As long as the end result is you have this amazing meal, why would anybody complain? And so there are some challenges in this line of work where I find it a lot easier to get the computer away from the customers who don't want to learn. They say they do, but they don't. When they truly want to learn, they're a pleasure to work with, right? I don't mind. But when they say they want to learn, but then their actions suggest they don't have the time or patience to actually, like if somebody's saying, just get to it, just get to it. No. I am getting to it, but without the foundation, I can't build the house. The house will collapse. There's just no point in even wasting my time. So what I have found in most scenarios where somebody's calling for help, they're done with it. So let me get the computer away from them. I don't want them looking over my shoulder. I don't want them saying, oh, well, look, he did a reset. That's what I'll do from now on. That should have never been done in front of somebody because they can end up causing more harm in the future, thinking that's the simple solution to every problem they have. This has happened numerous times. And, the issues on me for not putting the proper protocols in place to ensure that wouldn't happen. You know how I ensure that won't happen? Don't do it in front of the other person. Don't let them see you. Just take it away to a room or take it back away from the building. In my case, I pick a machine up, I bring it back to here, I work on it, fix it, and return it back to them. If I can make a video out of it for people who want to learn, I'll explain how we got here and what the fix was. And if the client wants to watch the video, I can't stop them. I'm not hiding it from them. But most clients have no interest in this. You guys have interest in it. And that's how the circle works, right? That's how it all works around. So that if the client decides they want to see what I did to their machine to fix it, they absolutely can watch this video. And if they want to skip through everything and skip through all the foundational and go right to whatever they believe the fix to be, I'm not stopping them. So again, it's not in any way meant to insult or infer anything negative about anybody who asks for help. I think asking for help is a very respectable thing versus that stubborn hard-headedness when you're out of your wheelhouse and just refusing, pride's getting in the way and letting somebody help you. And especially when the help won't cost you anything. All you have to do is say okay and the problem goes away. And I understand that better than most people, I think. And I've gotten to an age now where there are certain things I won't do. There's certain things that I say, around the house. I'm not going to try and install a floor, and I'm not going to try and fix drywall. It's not my thing. I'm not good at it, and I don't really want to be. It doesn't get me excited. I find it almost like it's a skill I don't have, and it requires a patience that I don't have. So better to just when it comes to certain kinds of work, let somebody else do that. It's not me being lazy. It's me going, I don't know how to do this properly. I want it done right. I've never done it before. In the case of like a floor, it's going to be there a long time. So it's really important to me that I don't have to rip that floor out because I did it wrong anytime soon, and then have to replace the floor again. And then the work has to be done twice. Let me hire somebody who's done this numerous times and maybe even has professional training. They'll get it done faster, theoretically, if they're truly professional. They'll get it done right the first time. And things like making the cuts, you know, they're not going to screw up and keep breaking the floor when they're making cuts because they have all the right tools. They know how to measure it. They know how it's not cut too shallow, not cut too deep to go around all the corners and fixtures and things. Yeah, I mean, unless I want to start doing that as a career, I don't want to make that investment in education and tools just to put one floor in. When a flooring person has a variety of tools I've never even seen before. So in any event, I treat that the same way. And with Subaru Mike, if I have a car problem, I like to understand what it is, but when it comes to actually verifying that I have concluded it correctly, I want his expert opinion because he knows way more about it than I do. He makes it look really easy, and he's got just amazing tools that can take a job that would be harder for me without the tools or experience, and he can get it done like it's nothing, and it's really impressive. And you know, I appreciate that very much, and I won't hesitate if I have a car problem to say, hey, what do you think this is? You think you might have some time to take a look at it? And I would love it if he did that back with the computer, because I enjoy hanging out with him, and I enjoy returning what he does for me. Let me do something for you. Let's make this more reciprocal. No, I got this. Okay. But finally I got it. Now, it does look like we powered on here. And do we have an HDMI port? Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's fans. There is fan. There's a fan here and a fan here because I saw them. Get my glasses out. You can usually see the fans through the holes on the bottom, the vents. This is where the air will be drawn in on most laptops, and then it'll come out through the holes that are between the, here at the bottom of the monitor, the back of the laptop. That's behind the keyboard. You usually see some holes. That's usually where the exhaust air is coming out. Some laptops also bring the air in on one side and exhaust. Like they might bring in the air in here and bring it around in a big U back out the back. But most commonly, you'll have a vents down on the bottom. And this is why if you put the laptop on your lap or set it on the bed, you're suffocating your laptop. And that's why they sell laptop cooling pads to get the laptop up off the ground. If you have a 3D printer, you can 3D print little legs that it's like a funny shaped circle with a slot, and then you put the slot here on the edge of the laptop, and it creates a little stand for it that lifts it up, and that way it can safely continue to breathe when you set it down on, particularly what I think of as like a bed. You set it on the bed next to you, and that laptop is just suffocating because the sheets of the bed are getting pulled in essentially to these vents because you're right up against it. So, you know, there is a small lip on here, but that's meant to go onto a hard surface. And then there's a slight tilt, very, very slight tilt right here that lets the air get up into it. And it's something to be mindful of if you have a laptop. And, you know, a lot of these companies will promote these laptop cooling pads that, in my opinion, are a complete waste of money. If you just properly set the laptop up, they do help keep a laptop cool. That's true. However, unless it's a really high-end gaming laptop, it's probably not necessary. And even then, only when you're doing some high-end gaming on it. But it is designed from the manufacturer to not require a cooling pad. unless it's not being, you haven't put it on a desk properly for that it can breathe properly. Or it's getting really loud and annoying you, so you buy a laptop cooling pad so your laptop doesn't get as loud, but now instead you have to listen to the fans on the cooling pad. And you're spending, you know, who knows how much to buy those, $60 to $100. But anyway, to each their own. I wanted to look and see if I can see the fans turning. And you may not be able to pick this up, but there's a fan. Can't see it. There's a fan right here. And there is a fan. Should be one down here. Yeah, there it is. And I can't tell if it's turning or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the back off the laptop, and let's just see how dusty or not dusty it is, so we know what we're working with. So I'm going to shut this off. Now this laptop being only about 2-3 years old, probably the battery's fine, would be my guess, because if the laptop shuts off, like while you're working on it, it won't turn back on. Sometimes that's a dead battery that gets in the way. We had that Dell XPS. That's a prime example. Even when it was plugged in, it wouldn't turn on. And the customer said, I know it's my battery. The laptop was 8 years old, and it's long overdue. And I said, well, normally a battery doesn't prevent a machine from turning on when plugged in, but I'll change it if that's what you want me to do. And you know, it's possible. And I changed it, and customer's been happy ever since. So customer diagnosed that correctly. He said he looked online to see how to replace the battery and said, I'm going to call somebody else. That looks way too involved for me. So I've got this TechMan toolkit, and we've got some Torx screws here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 9, maybe 10 screws. There's one in the middle. I've never opened one of these up before. Let's just take a look at what's going on. Is it this size? I'm gonna guess. Yes. T4s, pretty common on laptop screws. Torx T4, that feels a little loose. It might be a T5. Let's see. See if T5 fits any better. Oh, I think it's a T5. Obviously, well, it should be obvious, you don't want to use a screw that's a driver that's too small, or you could cam out the screw and strip out the points in it that are what the driver uses to, you know, get resistance to turn it. So the T4 and the T5, they're very similar, but one is just a little bit bigger. The bigger the number, the bigger the driver. You know, you could go to something like a T7, which is noticeably bigger. I'm going to put this one back in order right there. So yeah, just because you think you got the right driver, maybe just try the next size up just to be sure, because if the next size up fits and turns a screw, that's more than likely a much better choice for you to use. Now that screw is much longer. Yep. You see, I take these out and I place them on the desk in the order that they came out. I'm going to guess I have to take this middle one out. And then there's just 3 more here, one over each hinge and one in the middle. And those are also long screws. We have 2 different screw lengths here. We've got the longer screws and the shorter ones. So it's important that you remember where you've taken them from when it comes to reassembly. And you can take pictures with your phone, or you can find a YouTube teardown video. Likely there's been one made for your laptop, if not several. But do be aware there's sometimes misinformation in those, and there's sometimes variations of models where you have the same make and model, but then there's a revision that you may not have, and yours may not align in some ways. We need a way to separate this. I think where my spudgers are. I've got the iFixit toolkit here, which, if I recall, has some spudgers in it. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's just get this out of here. It's pretty bad when I'm putting tools back in their box. It already has a container. This is all I need. I don't need all this other stuff. I think the reason I keep it is so I know what's in it. Because I won't know by looking at this which toolkit. And even that has another little toolbox in it there. Okay. Oh, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. These have these toolkits. They have these little spudging tools. They look like guitar picks. And the goal here is to try and find a seam where the bottom and the top meet. And manufacturing is so precise today. Well, this was a lot easier in the 70s and 80s because the seams were much, they had a space between them, a gap. Now there's almost no gap, and to just try and get something the thickness of a guitar pick between them, it can be quite challenging. And if you're not prepared for that, then you probably don't want to do this kind of work, because if you grab something like a flat blade screwdriver, it's likely going to bend in and eat into the plastic, and you're going to gouge it, and that's just going to be there forever. So unless you don't mind gouging it all up, most people do. If you have something nice, most people want to keep it looking nice. You don't want it to look like somebody repaired it and put Band-Aids and duct tape on it. Some people do. Most people don't. All right, let's see. Come on now. The other thing that this toolkit has, by the way, there's this suction cup device. And sometimes you can use something like this, and I don't know how this works. Try and lift it up. I guess you put it on like that. This is how they often will remove screens and things from tablets and cell phones. That's why you don't really see me use this very often. And every once in a while, you might get lucky. Yeah, that's not helping in our situation here, but it was worth a shot. I mean, why not? I got the tool. Feel like if I don't try using it, I didn't get my money's worth. All right, so we got to find some way to get in here. Wow, that is an incredibly tight seam. It is so close. Like, this plastic is just too wide. I do have a metal spudging tool, which is a lot thinner, because metal's not as brittle as plastic, so you can get it thinner. And I think I've got it in this parts bag here, but let me just take a look in here. Is it in here? Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Actually, I've got one from iFixit, and here it is. I've got this one here, and this iFixit one is much more sturdy. This one, the idea is that you want this to give before the plastic gives, or you gouge. This one is less flexible. It's a little bit thicker. It's got a much stronger handle on it. So let's just try the iFixit tool first. Oh, and that went right in. No problem. And we'll just slide it and see if we can't figure out where the clips are. There we go. That's it. That's it. Now I can grab my plastic spudger and I should be able to just slide it across. with the keyword being should. And usually if you slide it, you will release the clips in the process. And it does help if you lift up a little bit on the lid. Don't lift it too much. You know, just enough that you're motivating the clips once you've loosened them to separate. There we go. You see how I go around the edges and do the same thing? Now, when you get close to like USB ports or buttons, there can be some resistance because the way it clips in there is going to be a little different. And you definitely don't want to damage those connectors that are there. So maybe just skip over those and just continue on. Or take a little bit more care. Instead of just blindly sliding, intentionally get the spudger underneath those stuck areas specifically and give it a little twist. Well, again, I'm just lifting a little bit up on this lid just to help motivate the direction I want it to go in once those clips release. Because if I release the clips without lifting, they just reset back underneath what's ever holding them in. Now, in theory, sometimes with the back, you don't have to use the spudger, sometimes. But if you're not careful, if something's not releasing from the back, you still want to use the spudger wherever that's sticking. Or you could break the clips in the back. What happens when you break the clips is then the lid, this bottom lid won't sit flush. And after you put the screws in, when you look at your seams, you'll see waves in this. And it's a little annoying for those of us that pay attention to that kind of stuff. Especially if your laptop was like this one in pristine condition and you're the one who just marked it all up because you were too impatient when you took it apart or you weren't using the right tools. Just like that, it came off. And that is fantastic. I see the thermal tape for the an Intel 512 gig solid state NVMe drive in there. These spudgers, they can go back in this toolkit. There we go. And I think I am done with this toolkit. I don't think I need it anymore. So it looks like I just needed the little TechMan toolkit. We can put a link to this in the video notes below. And I can also put a link to this iFixit kit with the spudgers. Those are more designed for portable things like laptops. And my bigger Manta toolkit is more designed for like security bits and that sort of thing. But these spudgers, this iFixit spudger is one of my favorites for just the reason you saw. It's just the right amount of thickness and it's got a good size handle. This one, you know, the handle's in the middle and it gets, for me, it's just not as comfortable to try and use a couple of finger strength versus making a fist and having my whole hand use it to turn something that's, you know, fighting some resistance that, depending on the laptop model, can be, if it's never been opened and, you know, maybe it's several years old and it's never been opened since it was at the factory, those clips get brittle and it might be on there super tight. And we've got, let's see, a speaker right there, battery, speaker. We have the fan, and we look up here at the heatsink to see if we have any debris, lint, hair. Also, if any debris, lint, or hair are in the fans, if the fans turn smoothly or if they're resistant or stuck. And then the spot where the heatsink meets the fan, there's usually like a piece of tape over it. That's where everything gets stuck, right inside of there, right there. And on this fan, and you'll see there's a piece of foam right here and right here. The foam is there because that's, you think of like an air duct. The air is going to be coming out where the foam is and going through this heatsink and then blowing out the back here, which right now is kind of blocked because the lid is closed. But also not so much. Like it is not right up against it. There's a gap of about 1/4 of an inch between the back of the monitor plastic and the end of the motherboard plastic, the bottom half of the laptop. And that's enough. Like that's all it needs for the air to get out. And you can understand it doesn't take much to block that. So if you have pets, dogs, cats, dog hair, cat hair gets in there. If you're in a dusty environment or you leave it on all the time, you basically have 2 little vacuum cleaners that are just always on. So anything in your environment, a dusty environment, gets pulled in. The laptop looks like brand new in here. Like, I see nothing. Everything looks great. What's interesting and fascinating to me is this is all battery and speakers. So from here up, this is your motherboard. This is everything. This is your NVIDIA graphics card, your AMD CPU, your storage. Obviously, the RAM is soldered on this model. This is the RAM right here. This is what makes it so thin and so light. And then your Wi-Fi card is right there. That's easily updated. Check my email, she says. Okay. Oh, our friend Buster sends a PayPal super contribution. Hello, Carrie and Marlena. Just another wee gift from your friend Buster. Well, thank you, Buster. It's very... Buster's such a generous person. Thank you so much, Buster. Where would we be without Buster?
Nowhere.
Oh, it looks like I broke a little clip. I see a little clip piece, the end of a clip, right there on my Lazy Susan. It's almost unavoidable with some of these laptops, depending on how they're manufactured and how old and how brittle they are, and how much pressure you put on the lid. In this case, the lid I'm referring to is the bottom piece. Likely that's not even going to be noticeable when we put it back together. But if you get a bunch of those, you get a half dozen of those, things may not sit right. I mean, I wish we could go back to the old days and just use screws and just get rid of the clips. The clips will break. And it's okay if you break a few of them. They're super teeny tiny. I mean, if you can understand just how small that is, it's maybe a quarter of an inch. And you've got multiples. So thankfully there are multiples. Clip, 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 clip. So if one breaks off, it's not the end of the world. You probably wouldn't even notice it. But if several in a row break off, that part may, where the clips are missing, it may bow. It may not. But back in the day, they used to make laptops, you just remove the screws and the lid came off. The screws are what held it in. But there was also a noticeable gap between where the bottom of the laptop met the top of it. And these days, if you're just an average consumer, you would have no idea where that gap is. It's so seamlessly molded into the design. There are some laptops we've seen that, is this a seam or is this just a little ridge they put in? And is that just part of the look of the laptop? Where does the spudger go? Yep. And the newer the laptop is, and especially if it's a thin, slim design, the slimmer the design, the less ports you're going to have on it, the lighter weight it's going to be, probably the longer battery life it'll have, the less upgradable. It probably won't have anything but soldered RAM in it because there's almost no way to get it that thin. If you've got these sockets and RAM sticking up, you'd have to make it thicker. You're not going to have an Ethernet port on the side because the Ethernet port is twice as thick, and you'd have to make the laptop thicker. So the laptop will be Wi-Fi only. It's sort of blurring the line between laptop and tablet, right? And I'm a big fan of the thin and light laptops. I mean, quite frankly, if I'm going to have a heavy laptop, I might as well bring a mini PC instead. But, different solutions to different problems and preferences and budgets. But just understand what you're buying, right? Have proper expectations that if you're going to buy a laptop and if you think you're going to be opening it, you're going to require some special tools these days. This is not Philips. This is Torx. And a lot of people don't have Torx drivers laying around. And then on top of that, spudger tools. Most people don't have spudger tools laying around. Sure, you could grab an old credit card or something if you wanted to use it. Probably work just as well. Assuming the card was thin enough to get into the seam. As I mentioned, those little guitar picks, they were too thick. The other one I used, I was able to get in there. So be prepared if you want to undertake that. This is the new normal. All right, what have I been missing in the chat? The Greeniest said, I sent a PayPal Friday that says it was sent, but Carrie hasn't received it. Not sure what the issue is. Weird. We can, if you reach out to us privately, Luke, we can take a look and see what's going on and see if we see anything on our end. Didn't I read out a contribution from you on Friday? Anyway, reach out to us privately and we can handle it offline and see if we can figure that out. I certainly appreciate your support, your contributions, and following up to see that we got it. What is the average lifespan for a laptop? Eric Randall in the chat wants to know. Depends on the laptop. If you buy a $300 laptop, you can expect to get about a year per $100 that you spend. So if it's a $300 laptop, I'd say 3 years. However, the minute you start dealing with gaming laptops, that equation goes out the windows because the graphics cards add such an expense and the high frequency monitors and things like that, that now gaming is so demanding that you might only get 5 years usable life out of a gaming laptop. If you're always wanting to play the latest games, the laptop won't be able to keep up in 5 years. It'll still work and it'll play the older games from 5 years ago just fine, but you might struggle with some of the newer titles that are even more resource intensive than your laptop is capable of delivering smoothly or to your level of expectation. And of course, this assumes you take care of your laptop, that you're not banging it around or spilling things on it, that you're doing proper maintenance, which means you're getting your updates, firmware updates, Windows updates, you're cleaning temp files, and you're doing all the standard maintenance things, being proactive instead of reactive. And, you know, take a little canned air and blow through. You don't have to take the back off, just blow through the vents on both sides and see if anything comes out of there. I use a rechargeable air duster. They sell them on Amazon, $40 to $100, depending on which one you buy. They charge up via USB. They have a lithium-ion battery, and they'll blow up to over 100-mile-an-hour winds out of these little handheld air dusters. In fact, I've got one right here. And I don't think this manufacturer is made anymore, but they just keep making them more and more powerful. Like, this is nothing compared to the new ones. What I do like about this one is it's got this, oh, look at the dust. It's got this carbon brush. This prevents electrostatic discharge. Newer ones perhaps come with a brush that's not attached, and you would brush it, and then you'd, you know, run the air through it and brush it again. I like that the brush is built in, and I like that it's a carbon brush so that I can actually touch components and not worry about hurting them. Nothing's coming out of there. Those are clean. So I don't think he's having a heat-related problem, but we still have to power it on and run like Cinebench on it and see how hot this thing gets. It is weird that he never hears fans to the point that he doesn't think it has fans. And yet there's 2 fans on it, not just one. That makes me wonder if maybe the fan curve in the BIOS is set to like a silent mode versus performance, and that's why he's not hearing it. And if that may or may not be related to the problem of the machine shutting down, other than he wasn't having that problem before, which would imply something's changed, right? Either dirt or something is blocking the fans is built up over time. Or maybe there was a BIOS update that changed the fan curve. Or maybe a plug wasn't plugged all the way in. Maybe the adapter is starting to fail, the power adapter. Any of those are possibilities at this point. Let It Cryos with a $5 super chat says you could get a heating pad on your lap, then the laptop. Enjoy your tech support call. Did that ever happen? I got a feeling that actually happened. El Perez says hello, welcome in. Al, there's Alex Sasso saying hello. Robert McCord Bagumi joins us. Martin Postema says hello. And let's see, who else do we have in here? There's our friend Colin Hilton, joins us from the UK. Good to see you, Colin. Welcome back. Again, I'm just catching up, and checking in with the chat room. Ropin Yerman says happy Sunday. He's finally indoors, sick of the snow, over 40 centimeters in 5 days. I wouldn't mind a little Arizona heat right now, he says. I wouldn't mind a little bit of that snow. You want to trade? Mark Gaines said I didn't receive something from him on Friday as well. No? It is weird. Maybe something's going on. All right. Well, I don't see anything inside of here that is any, worrisome at all. I think it's best that we can turn this thing on and just make sure these fans are turning since they're so quiet. So we should be fine on this wooden surface. The Lazy Susan shouldn't interfere with the fans. They are going to be pretty well up against the wood, but not enough that should stop them from spinning. And my main concern is when I turn this on, do I see the fans start to turn? It just booted. And you know what? We're not turning. Remember, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of resource for the desktop to appear. So it may be that nothing's gotten warm enough yet to kick these fans on, and that this is perfectly normal operation. The problem is, if they're that quiet and you can't tell the difference between when they're on and when they're off, it's hard to know You know, for the people that complain about computer noise, I've always said, as long as I'm only hearing the fans ramp up when it's doing something really intense, that's reassuring to me. I don't want to hear those fans constantly when I'm just sitting at a desktop. But if the engineers have designed it so quiet that you can't hear them one way or another, how can you be sure they're even turning, ever? And then that requires nothing more than visual inspection, which may require taking the back off to see. You might be able to shine a light through these vents and see the fans, and just enough to see when they're spinning or when they're stopped. That may be all you need to do to satisfy the curiosity if you can't hear them. So I do wish it had a little bit of something that told me it was on, other than just the screen obviously being lit up. I thought if I let it sit here for a minute, maybe they'd kick on, but nothing's happening. We are booted up. So maybe we need to make it do something. Because again, maybe it's just so cool, it doesn't need the fans. The passive cooling is enough for it at this point. Oh, what can we do? What can we do? I'll bring my utilities USB because I need that anyway. Let's plug that in and copy some utilities over. So we'll get here we go. Drive D. Let's put VLC in there. And as VLC installs, let's see if the fans kick on. We'll just install it right off the USB stick and see what happens. Not yet. VLC finished and still no fans. Now I'm getting a little worried. Let me grab Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 optimizer. Let's throw that on here. That's going to make it work a little bit. Again, that's even not the most intense task, but I'm starting gentle. Okay, I just don't want to throw it to the wolves and watch what happens. Let's see if it's got any defenses at all first. So I'm going to run my optimizer now. Yes. And then hit apply. And now, let's see if we see those fans kick off. Nothing. Nothing. Wow. We might have a problem. Those fans are not turning. They're free to spin. They're not seized. Two fans wouldn't ordinarily go out at the same time. Okay, my optimization tool's finished. It wants to reboot. So let's click on yes to reboot. Maybe we'll see the fans spin at the very least during the initial power on that everything cycles. Let's see if it cycles. System is restarting. Nothing, nothing. Still says restarting. Says it's restarting. There it goes. All right, let's see what it reposts. There it goes. It's starting to post. Do we get anything turning yet? Windows is loading. Well, I can certainly understand why he thinks this doesn't have fans in it. They did not at all initialize. Wow. That is strange. Okay. So far, with the optimizer and VLC, we've not asked it to do that much. It could be that the heat sinks and the vapor chambers they've got on here are so good that this kind of mild use just doesn't create enough heat to generate justifying kicking those on. And I say that because it'd be pretty weird if both fans were both easily rotating without any sort of resistance, were plugged in, fully seated, and neither one works. They both wouldn't fail at the same time. There's something else going on. And my initial thought on this is we just haven't pushed it hard enough yet. So let me go back over to my utilities and let's run let's see. We want the PC testing software directory, and we want to get let's get Crystal Disk Mark on there, measure the drive's performance. So this is not a drive related problem, but it's just part of the benchmark. When I say benchmark, I'm not referring to a race, like I'm trying to win a race and have the biggest numbers. I'm referring to getting a number that tells us a category or range of performance, and if we are within that upper and lower end of the expected performance of the kind of drive that it has. That's all. Hardware info, that's going to tell us, that's our heat monitor. Let's bring that over. And let's bring over Cinebench, because that is definitely going to kick those fans on if the fans are running. But before I do that, let me just run hardware info and see what our temps are now, because if our temps are really hot now, I am not going to put Cinebench on there until I figure out what's going on. If our temps are low now, then I understand why the fans aren't turning. It's just literally that heat efficient. I don't know yet, but this is the diagnostic process. So right now I'm just copying Cinebench off of the flash drive onto the desktop. There we go. And I don't know if there's anything else I need off the flash drive, but for the sake of keeping this test accurate, we're going to unplug the flash drive. And if there's anything else I've forgotten, I'll pull it back. Okay, so HWI hardware info. You know, because we're in Windows, I should be able to share the screen with you. Where's my HDMI cable? Here we go. HDMI. Let's see if I can share this with you. Yes. Okay, good. Now you and I can look at the same thing. See where we're at. Temps in the 40s apparently don't kick on our fans. Nope, fans are not running. Okay, so let's go to Cinebench, because in the 40s is pretty cool. Anything under 50, really. And let's see what happens. Let's see if these fans are going to kick on, or if this thing's going to overheat. Close that out. Let's move this over, bring it down here. Go and accept this license agreement here and start this test and open up the temperature sensor. I'm going to put the laptop on its side so I can look at the bottom. And temps climbing to 67. Fans are not on. 69, 70, Fans are not on. Oh, this isn't looking good. Wait, fans just turned on. We have fans. Ladies and gentlemen, those fans really require a temp over 70 degrees Celsius before they turn on. So if I come back over here to camera 1, you should be able to see these fans are spinning now. Can be a little difficult to tell with laptop fans, those flat fans that have the fins along the sides. Like I said, they bring air in from the open fan part that you're looking at, and then they exhaust the air out the back that's kind of hidden in the gap between the monitor and the bottom of the laptop. That's pretty common laptop design. Oh, and they're definitely making some noise. So he's just never pushed this hard enough. Our max temp is still at 73 right now, which is still really, really good. Like I say, Cinebench is a very unrealistic torture test for an extraordinarily long period of time that no normal, ordinary customer would ever put a computer through under normal circumstances outside of benchmarking it. If a customer is normally running a computer this hard, then they don't have a computer powerful enough, in my opinion, to meet their needs. They cheaped out, they bought something inadequate, and they're torturing the heck out of it, making it do something on a full-time basis that it was only made to do part-time, which is to run full out, pedal to the metal full bore. What's the harm? Well, the harm if you were to buy, say, let's say, for example, you have these very demanding tasks that you require of your computer, but you don't have the budget to do those tasks. You can't afford the equipment. So you buy the cheapest thing you can buy, and then you torture the heck out of it, and then complain about how loud it is and how hot it's getting, which is your fault because you bought the wrong thing. Furthermore, you're going to degrade it much faster. The heat and the wear are going to shorten its lifespan. The degradation that occurs, it's a deterioration through just being worn out. You're just going to wear it out that much sooner. And it may, at the end of it all, leave you with a very bad taste in your mouth for whatever brand of computer you bought. You might feel like you were ripped off. And if you couldn't afford to buy the right equipment the first time, buying the wrong equipment twice is probably not saving you any money, not to mention the frustration, the headache of just dealing with the noise and you know, having to take it apart and modify it in some way. I've seen people add fans and things that are like even a laptop cooling pad that shouldn't be needed on a regular laptop, because they're abusing the laptop and they're using it in a way, how can I explain this? It'd be like you have a little two-door sports car and you want to take it off-roading. You will likely break that sports car very quickly because you're using it in a way it was never intended. If you take a screwdriver and start hammering on it as though it were a chisel, it's probably not chiseling very well. It will work as a chisel, but it's also probably going to break or damage the screwdriver or the end of the screwdriver as such that it won't work as a screwdriver anymore because you bought the wrong tool. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's okay if you say, look, I don't have the money, this is all I can buy, and this is what I want to do, but just plan accordingly. You're going to be dealing with a lot of noise on a short-lived computer. That's not normal. That's not a normal common occurrence or experience that most computer owners have. And you can have the same experience as everybody else if you choose to buy the right tools for what you're trying to do. And if you absolutely refuse that, then be prepared, put your seatbelt on, and don't complain about the quality of the ride. It's a consequence of choice. And regardless of why those choices were made, the physics involved in the rules and the laws of the world we live in aren't bending for you. They're the same for all of us. We're at still only a maximum temp of 73. And this test has been going, what, about 5 minutes now? And that's really impressive when, you know, a lot of smaller laptops or mini PCs, they simply don't have the airflow to do this kind of work. it's almost, in my opinion, wrong to even run a test like this on a little machine that has such a confined area and limited airflow. To expect it to do this without getting into the 90 degrees or hotter temperatures, I think is a pretty unrealistic expectation. But every once in a while, we'll run into machines like this one that are designed to do just this. Like, this is not a cheap laptop. This is not a budget laptop. This is a laptop designed to be taking on intense workloads. And you can see, well, I think it went to sleep. Aside from going to sleep, you can see how well it performs these tasks. And that comes at a cost. The laptop is not a $300 laptop. And just because a laptop's $1,000 doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do this well either. But the odds are that's all related to what you're getting for the money. So there's a very good chance it's going to be just fine at the higher price points. And assuming you're allowing it to breathe and you don't, for example, have it on the bed. You put it on a pillow to lift it up. And, it's sitting on the pillow, you're suffocating it. It's like, it's inhumane torture to the poor thing. I'm just stepping away here for a second when you guys see that progress along. All right. So far, so good. I don't think he's having any heat-related problems at all. Far from it. And those fans are quite noticeable, the noise they make. At this point, see if I can lean into it a little bit. I don't know if the microphone can pick that up. But I literally have the microphone right at the fan. I'll move it to the other fan. And I mean, I am right up into that fan. I mean, that's like if you put your ear right to the fan. That's how close I got the microphone. That's really relatively quiet, but still noticeable. So if Mike says he's never heard the fans before, then he's never run the computer this hard. And he probably hasn't, because he doesn't use it for intense workloads. He's using it to buy car parts at car parts sites, eBay. He's paying some bills. He's answering emails. None of that should require much resource usage. So this is way overkill for what he needs. But don't try telling him that. Okay. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat room here. Gentleman 2000 said closed cover will make things different. No, not on a laptop. It will not. The laptop covers, what you have to understand is these fans only draw air in from directly above them, right? They don't draw air in from around them. They only draw air from above them. Or in the case of a laptop being properly situated, from below them. The exhaust and the duct and everything else is all sealed, even when the bottom is removed. So there will be absolutely zero, and I mean zero, difference in performance when you remove the cover of a laptop. Now, when we talk about a tower computer, then of course airflow is open to changing when you take the panels off, because now the air can escape. But because, I showed you that foam earlier and how that's all sealed up, the air can only come in one place and it can only go out one place on a laptop. And so we have one of those scenarios where someone's under the impression that the same rules apply to desktops and laptops in effective cooling, and it's just simply not the case. They're two very different designed cooling patterns using different cooling tools. For example, the fans you see on this laptop are not the fans you typically will find in a desktop, although they being like Dell and HP, do make these large cage style fans for many of their pre-builts. Then they'll have like a little tunnel that connects to the side panel or the rear panel of the case. And when you remove that tunnel, it obviously affects the airflow. Some of the Dells we've seen, you can pull the side panel off and the ductwork stays attached to the rear of the case. So that has no impact on the airflow either in that design. But the minute you take that tunnel off, now things operate a little differently. So just something to keep in mind. There are different rules for different equipment, different maintenance, different hardware and cooling techniques that are used. And that there's just not this one universal, this always applies in all situations kind of a scenario, a blanket. It's oversimplifying the tech world, right? Because we have numerous different kinds of cooling solutions, and they're not all going to operate under the same conditions. So looking at this test now, it looks like it finished. I'm going to go ahead and run the second one here. This is our single core, and then we'll bring up the hardware info. The max temp we hit on this was only 73 degrees. So that's really impressive. I'm so accustomed, I should say this, I'm so accustomed to dealing with the more common, cheaper laptops. I just don't think a laptop would ideally, run a test like this well. But when I think about how much this laptop cost and how it was promoted, it makes perfect sense that a laptop like this, it's designed to do this kind of work. And I don't see laptops like this very often. And again, usually we're going to see the worst temps within the first 2 minutes of this test. This test has been going on for what? Nearly a minute. Now those fans are quieted down. The fans have stopped. The fans aren't even turning right now. So we'll just let that run and we'll keep an eye on it. But so far, I don't see anything wrong with the laptop. However, what I can tell you is there's a bunch of missing things. When this laptop came from Asus, it had Asus utilities on it. They're not there anymore. These utilities were for system monitoring, for driver updates. Now he's getting everything through Windows Update from Microsoft, which is apparently good enough. But if we want to get peak performance and operation out of this thing, then we want to make sure we have the latest from Asus. We can check our BIOS, make sure we have the latest BIOS installed. That may make a difference. And we can also make sure that we load all the BIOS defaults to ensure that nothing has been changed. Nothing should be changed, but you never know. Never hurts to go back to defaults. It's very, very difficult to fix a problem if we can't replicate it. Now, this whole time, we have been running off the battery, by the way. And that's the other thing I'm testing. I had plugged this in and made sure that the orange charge light went to white, implying that the battery was charged. And then I unplugged it and I set it on the desk so it was ready for us to do this today. And I thought, well, we're doing this, we'll also get a measure if that battery is, giving us only 20 minutes and telling us it needs, it's in a low state, it needs to be plugged in. That would indicate that maybe the battery is failing and that could be a cause of the problem. But again, it only 2.5 years old. Maybe, yeah, I think it's about 2 years old. That battery should be fine for another 2 years. But should be, and what it is, aren't really known until it's tested. So don't make any assumptions, just test everything. And then, so far, everything looks good. I didn't really see any dust or debris come out from the fans. I don't see any issue with the battery. We haven't dealt with the charger yet, but the charger clearly charged the battery up, so I assume that's okay. Other than driver updates, maybe there's something in there, but I just can't imagine that does anything more than improve performance. Or maybe it's related to the mouse going bad, that somehow something's clicking or getting stuck, like the buttons on the mouse, and that's creating a shutdown situation for some. Well, that wouldn't stop it from turning on. Yeah, I'm baffled so far. I haven't found anything yet, but we still go through the regular maintenance procedures. Our friend Buster said he just had that page memory leak. It crashed his browser again. Davis Parsons says a first world crime, laptop computer abuse. They don't realize they're doing it, though. That's one of those things that isn't done with malice or intent. It's like they just don't know any better. Oh, still going to sleep. I got to change those power settings on this thing. David Dix at Rock City PC said here in the chat room, some of those higher end Asus laptops have a big nice vapor chamber, and they use liquid metal, and it takes a lot of heat for those fans to kick on. But you should be able to adjust the fan curve in the UEFI BIOS. But I mean, why would I? If it's operating just fine, if it's not overheating. Yeah, see, the fans are turning right now, and they're turning very slowly. I can't hear them at all. And I think, oh, that one just stopped, and that one just stopped. I think that that they're not running any faster than that. Like, based on how he's using the laptop, I think that's about the most they need to do. They just kick on a little bit and kick back off. And they're in a very low gear, so it's just not making any noise. But it's nice to know they do ramp up like they're supposed to. They are working like they're supposed to. And it's cooling very, very well. We're not even anywhere close to hitting limits. So far, the max temp I see is still 73. Looks like 73 is our maximum. That's a good 12 degrees Celsius below what I would be worried about. I start to get worried at 85. And this test is almost done. I can put you back over to that screen, so if you guys want to see how we're doing so far, you can actually see it better than I can, because I have to look at it sideways. You have it properly oriented there on the screen. Yeah, it's sailing through this like it's nothing. It's like a hot knife through butter. It's impressive. I have to say, I am very impressed with this laptop. Sometimes, you know, I might seem a bit skeptical and uncertain at first. But over time, that usually verifies whatever my skepticism was, one way or the other, that it was unjustified, or in fact, it was something to be concerned about. And in this case, after this much time, this has really turned out to be a solid machine. And that, even though the machine isn't made anymore, certainly something worth considering when looking at other Asus laptops of a similar caliber. So if we look at the website where this is promoted, or was promoted, I guess I should say. So for example, Amazon. Let's jump over to Amazon right quick and take a look at how this was advertised. This is the Vivobook Pro 15 OLED. It does have a beautiful screen. It's an AMD Ryzen 5800H. That's a Ryzen 7 with an RTX 3050, which is a pretty decent video card. Now that 16 gigs of RAM is in fact soldered in. 512 gig SSD is only an Intel, so I can't imagine that's going to be very fast. But look, they advertise it. I mean, is that the description of the color, or is it quiet blue, the name of the color? I don't see any blue on it. Looks like black to me. 15.6-inch screen. Battery life of an average battery life of 6 hours, which a couple of years ago, okay. Yeah, the color is quiet blue. That's a little deceiving. 3.6 pounds, dimensions. Hard drive rotational speed. That's interesting since it doesn't have one. Voltage says 19 volts, but the power brick says 20 volts. Pretty simple. What's in the box? The laptop, the power cord, the adapter, and the warranty card. Overall, when you want to know how long should a laptop last, getting back to that earlier question, you know you'll have a laptop last at a minimum the length of the warranty. And if you want it to last any longer than that, then I would say buy the extended warranty, and now you know your laptop will last at least that long. Extended warranties may not be worth buying on a $300 or $500 laptop, but that's up to you. When you get into $1,000 or more, that's when extended warranties start to be more considerable or more up for consideration if you want to protect your investment and ensure that no matter what, at least for the extended warranty period of time, you know you're covered if anything should happen. Once the warranty ends, though, all bets are off, because depending on the environment and how you use it and how you treat it, your results could vary. Also, what you use it for. It might work fine 10 years from now. It's just that it'll be really, really slow. And, you know, by comparison of modern laptops. And if what you were buying 10 years ago was because 10 years ago you were demanding on not wanting to wait and you needed a lot of resources, then 10 years from now, you likely won't still be using that laptop because it will have become too slow for all of the resource intensive tasks you are using, becoming even more resource intensive as the products continue to evolve. Just like trying to run Windows 10 on a Windows 95 computer is just not going to work very well. But if you still want to run Windows 95 on a Windows 95 computer from 30 years ago, it'll run just as fast today as it did back then, using everything from 1995. The problem is when we're putting stuff from 2035 on a laptop from 2025, you might find that its performance and responsiveness is inadequate. On the other hand, if what you're doing is really relatively simple stuff, you probably didn't need a laptop of this caliber to begin with. However, had you bought one of this caliber, it is more likely going to stand the test of time because it's built up better quality ingredients, usually, than just the cheapest thing you can buy. And typically the warranty is reflected in that as well. When a manufacturer really believes in the quality of their product, they'll have a much longer warranty. When a manufacturer is trying to get you the cheapest price possible and nothing more than that, one of the first things to go is the warranty. It'll be minimized to just legal minimums here in the United States. Now, looking over at Asus's website, when it comes to the dedicated official page for this laptop, we can see the promotional materials and how this was promoted. Like this is saying Windows 10 Pro. This is a different model, probably a little bit earlier. And yeah, quiet blue is just the description of description of color. This one is cool silver. So they're sort of a little marketing mind game by suggesting that the laptop is quiet and cool simply because of the color you picked, reflecting that idea. It's a 63 watt hour battery, at least on this model, but this is something a little different. I don't know why. I think we might have a wrong link. This might have been like a few months earlier. Jump over to this other link. Does this still say Windows? Oh, I see. It looks like it might have come with Windows 10 or 11, that perhaps you had a choice. This says free upgrade to Windows 11 when it's available. I'm pretty sure this came with Windows 11. Everything else looks the same. Same storage, same RAM. So there might have been an upgrade where they don't change the chassis or anything. They just change a couple of internals or the OS. I'm not sure. This says it's an M35QC, M3500 QC, and we have, what's the sticker on the laptop say? Doesn't say. Okay, well, I'm not sure. Let's go, let me see. Let's go back over to our desktop. Let's take a look at a couple things. Now I'm curious. There's your final results right there. Let me turn this back over so I can see it. Let's edit those power settings because that's going to drive me crazy if it keeps going to sleep on me. Oh, well, I mean, I am on battery after all, so I guess that's acceptable. That's fine. I'll leave it alone. If it's plugged in the wall, I'll tell it not to keep putting the screen to sleep so aggressively, but on battery, that makes sense. If I right-click on the Start menu and go to System, does it give us a model number? M3500QC. Yeah, well, that's it. But it's not Pro. It's Home. I'd have to go back to the original video review I did on this to see what operating system it came with, but I'm pretty sure it was always Windows 11 Home. But maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Let's see, there's your final results. I mean, we never got hotter than 73. That's it. That's really, really good. Let's close this. Let's close that. Now, Crystal Disk Mark, when it comes to an Intel drive, is probably only around 2,000 megabytes per second. Now, Subaru Mike has no complaints about load times, and it likely won't make any difference to upgrade to a faster NVMe on this machine because it's still, from his perspective, the internet's still going to be as fast. Windows is still going to load in the same amount of time. And a faster drive will generate more heat, which might create some side effects we don't want. So we're at around, 1800 should be normal for that drive. There we go. There's the 1800. That's what I expect out of it. Somewhere right around a little under 2000 is normal. We could change that out to like a Samsung 970 and get twice that speed. But at what cost with regards to heat? What's interesting is the lid does have, it absolutely does have, if I come over to camera 1, this little metal plate with thermal tape on it, and there's another metal plate here. And those are heat sinks. That's to spread the heat out. And that Intel drive should not need that at those performance numbers. That Intel drive doesn't get that hot to begin with. But again, his complaint has nothing to do with performance. It has to do with copy and paste doesn't work, the machine won't turn on, none of that. And why invite a new problem is all I'm saying. Now I'm looking at where this other heatsink is because we've got one that aligns right here with our NVMe. This one looks like it's just right over the battery. So maybe that's to just help remove heat from the battery. Or, no, that's all I can imagine it does. I don't know. These holes here, this is where the sound waves escape from the left and right speakers. So you can hear the speakers, so they don't sound like this. So these holes are for the laptop to bring air in. These holes are for the sound to come out. And that's it. Everything else is solid. There's no other way for air to get into the system, and nor does there need to be. This is not a liquid-proof laptop. If anything gets spilled on it, you're going to toast it. They do make laptops that are spill-resistant. They do generally cost more. And let me go back over here just to see how we're doing on our testing. Yeah, that's performing exactly like I would expect an Intel NVMe drive. Again, this is the, what model? 670p. You know, NVMe drives were very expensive, and the Intel 600 series of laptops were a bargain made by a reputable name. And I don't think I've ever seen one fail. Never, ever, so far, have I seen one go bad. But they're also not the fastest. That also means they run cooler. And as I mentioned, people get caught up in benchmarks. And when you get caught up in benchmarks, you can sit there and spend all kinds of money trying to achieve higher numbers that ultimately make a difference of literal milliseconds in real human experience. And, you know, if you've got the time and the money and the curiosity and you want to do that, I'm not telling you not to. But if the reason you're doing it is to have a faster computer, unless what you're using your computer for is heavy I/O locally on the computer itself, because you likely don't have any network that could even keep anywhere near the speeds of what you're thinking is you might be thinking this is a slow NVMe. It's probably 16 times faster than your fastest network connection at your house. So as long as what you're doing is local on the machine only, then that can improve performance and maybe some gaming loading levels and things like that. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, gaming is an expensive luxury in both time and money. For regular, ordinary human usage, most human beings cannot feel or see a difference going from Gen 3 to Gen 4 to Gen 5 NVMe drives. Well, they will all experience the loss of money that each generation requires more and more of. They will almost never see or feel any difference. And when the more extreme, you spend more and you get these really, really fast drives, they look great on benchmarks, but they might be a bear to cool them down. So if you have real justification for that, which could be just because you want it, or it could be because I have to have it, then you accept the consequences of the cost and the heat that you are then taking on as well. You're going to give up something to get something else. With the Intel drive, you're going to save money. You're not going to, under normal usage, notice any difference because, again, it's milliseconds. Human beings can't really measure milliseconds, not with any accuracy. There might be a few of them out there, a few human beings that can, but that would be a very unique talent. A lot of this is just psychological, that people see bigger numbers and they feel better. It's like a form of theater and entertainment. And look, entertainment's expensive. If that's how you get your entertainment, I'm not here to tell you not to. But if you want to be practical and reasonable to where the ends and the means make sense, right? They're logical. You could save a lot of money by not buying unnecessary things that could have potential consequences that lesser expensive items will accomplish, from your perspective, exactly the same with less consequences. So you pick which one's more important to you. Would you rather have stability or would you rather have speed? If you're driving really, really fast, it can be hard to control the car, and you're more likely going to crash if something were to happen and you have to perform an emergency maneuver. And then when you do crash, you're going to crash harder, right? Creating more damage. And if you drive too slow, well, then it might be discouraging to drive because it takes too long. But ideally, you find somewhere in the middle, which is usually what we call the speed limit, and that gets you there both safely, well under control, while consuming, a reasonable amount of fuel. That's the other thing, those high performance cars, they can overheat, they can get terrible gas mileage when they're pressed hard, make an awful lot of noise, and then when you lose control of them, create a lot of damage. And the same more or less applies with computers. Without all of the inertia, you do create more heat. The higher end, high performance products do cost a lot more. And in much the same way, if you're not really utilizing those extra resources, why do you have them? If you have them and you don't use them, it's the same as not having them. So if you have no reason to have it, why are you spending money you don't need to spend for something you're not using when you could spend half as much potentially that's for a tool that's better aligned to your needs? And ignorance is bliss. You wouldn't know you don't have those resources you're not using versus you do know you have resources you're not using. A great example of this is installing 64 gigs of RAM. Most people can't even use 32. And they think, I'm going to put some more RAM in and make it go faster, and it actually can make the system go slower. And then they're sitting there still using 18 or 22 gigs of RAM. On most people's scenarios, I don't care how many windows and tabs you've got open. Most end users don't use more than 22 gigs of RAM in 2025. It just is pretty rare. And so they go, oh, I got 32. Okay, great. 32 is perfect for you. I'll go to 64. Well, now you've got 32 additional gigs of RAM you're not using. I'll go to 96. Well, again, you're still not using it. You can add more of what you're not using. It gets kind of expensive, and if that makes you feel good, but why are you doing it? There's your final numbers on the NVMe drive, and it's pretty much exactly what I said. It's performing just like an Intel Gen 3 512 gig budget NVMe drive would perform. And furthermore, this was a bargain. I used a lot of these Intel drives because, again, end users can't tell the difference outside of running benchmarks in most cases. because if they did, I would have stopped using them. So I don't see any reason to change that out. I think it's fine. So even though we have much faster drives to choose from at a lower price, because now it's years later, things have come down in price, we can get bigger capacities. He's not even using 100 gigs of this drive. He never has. He's got 4 times more space than he needs, and giving him 10 times or 20 times more space he's not using is the same as not having it. I can't emphasize that enough. So I would not advise any of my customers to buy equipment they don't need to buy, or to have me do work that doesn't need to be done. I like to think of myself as an honest technician with practical solutions. And if what we're trying to do is outdo the neighbors, and it's all just fun and games, and we have lots of money to burn through, I'm not opposed to it, but I want to make sure we're both on the same page with why we're doing it and what we're expecting. And I've got to tell you, I cannot recall a single customer ever telling me, I want to outdo my neighbors, and I don't care what it costs. Just give me the best of everything. I mean, I've heard clients say it, but then when you actually say, okay, you want to do this, and you show them the bill, sometimes they're like, yeah, I think we could take it down a couple notches. Because I've heard clients say, hey, you know what, let's just do it all. Why not? I mean, when I die, the kids are just going to get the money anyway, so why don't I enjoy it, right? It all sounds good. You go, okay, here's the bill. Oh, well, you know, maybe we could just lose this and lose that. You know, suddenly the open checkbook isn't so open anymore. But it's fun to say it, right? It's fun to think about it. But the reality in my line of work is customers just don't follow through with, or first of all, they don't usually say things like that. And when they do, they don't usually follow through with it once they see that the reality is quite expensive. Why am I doing this again? Yeah. All right, let me hop back over into the chat. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat says, I went and looked back and it did have Windows 11 Home. There you go. So I think maybe that website, maybe they offered it with Windows 10 Home. It wasn't Pro though. And that's why I say working with laptops can be very confusing, because they might have made this model for 2 or 3 years, and then it varied with which operating system you could buy. You know, this one does not have a touch screen, and you know, maybe later they introduced a touch screen, and nothing else has changed. It can be very interesting when you're going to get like a BIOS update. You need to know specifically which one you've got. Although usually the same BIOS update applies to the same family of product. Sometimes it doesn't. And it's just those little details when you do that sort of work that you got to watch out for. It's Just Me wants to know, which do you prefer, Home or Pro, or why? I think most of my audience understands Pro is for business use, and there's almost no noticeable difference for an average home user. Average home user doesn't need to log into a workstation domain or server domain, or use BitLocker, or use virtual machines. So I suppose if you do any of those 3 things, you might want Pro, but other than that, you're wasting your money. If you're a home user using Pro and you've intentionally spent money to upgrade from Home to Pro, you likely just wasted money. You spent money on something for the idea. This is part of the damage that comes from carrying over an older education, where you go, well, the Pro version's better. That used to be true in Windows 7 days. You could use more memory, things were enhanced. But not today. Microsoft has changed that marketing tactic, where Pro is truly intended for business use, and Home is truly intended for consumer use. And if a home user puts Pro on a computer, it doesn't hurt anything. And if the computer came with Pro, might as well keep it. But also, if the computer came with Home and you're a home user, you might as well keep it. Anybody upgrading from Home to Pro, in 98+ % of the cases, is just buying an idea. Pro is better. And Microsoft loves that, by the way. Microsoft absolutely wants you to believe that. They would love to sell you something you absolutely don't need that will make no difference other than changing the word from home to pro. unless you want BitLocker or you need to log into a domain, or like I say, virtual machines, most of you don't do that. And those who do, they already know the difference between home and pro, and I wouldn't need to be having this discussion. So the very fact that you would ask suggests to me that everything I'm saying holds true. I have nothing against Pro. I will install Pro universally because for me it's a $3 difference. If I'm going to put home on a computer I build or Pro and it's $3, I'll just throw Pro on it. It doesn't hurt anything. But if a customer says, I have Windows 10 Home, how do I upgrade it to Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Home to Pro? Why? What is it you're trying to do? Why do you want to do that upgrade? Most times they can't answer that, or they think that, oh, it's going to make my computer better. No, it doesn't. No. It changes the word home to the word pro. That's pretty much all most home users are going to see. That's it. You want to pay money and time to do that? Go right ahead. But if a business calls me and they say, hey, we need to change this from home to pro, yeah, they probably do, because they probably need to log into web or network resources onto other computers and storage devices, and they may require virtual machines for certain types of work. They may even require encryption for certain industries, the types of work that they do. Home users, you can spend your money on VPNs and you can spend your money on data recovery software. I mean, home users get the shaft. It saddens me to see how much scamware is being sold and people are buying it, even from reputable sources. System utilities, driver utilities, cleanup utilities, data recovery utilities. Even when they're free, they're not free. They're coming at a cost. Everything is such a deception. Today, it's the worst I've ever seen it. You have reputable people recommending things, and they have no idea what they're recommending. You have people that were recommending honey that should have known better, didn't do their research. You look up to them for technical advice, and they were taken to the cleaners. And they go, hey, I made a mistake. I mean, that's right, we all make mistakes, but is anybody there doing any research? Like, you understand what that is? You understood how I told you guys about honey and how we wouldn't do business with them, and just right out of the gate, it's a bad idea. And I would just expect other people that are claiming to have a technical knowledge to know better. So they're not necessarily all doing it with malicious intent. They just don't know. And you're looking up to them, and you don't know that they don't know. They don't know that they don't know. And they go, oh, look, we screwed up. They got us. Well, that person you were looking up to didn't have that basic knowledge? That's weird to me. And we're all allowed to make mistakes, but that was going on for months. How long does it take you to figure it out? Somebody brings it to their attention who actually does the work and demonstrates it, and they go, oh, why weren't they the ones who brought that to everybody's attention? Where were they this whole time that they were giving you tech advice and then promoting this thing? Seems like, doesn't one go hand in hand with the other? So, yeah, I just can't warn you enough to stay away from things like, what's the other big? SpinRite. SpinRite's, in my opinion, one of the worst. They just have no examples of demonstrations of SpinRite actually fixing anything. I've never seen a video of SpinRite. They show you how it works, and they tell you what it's supposed to do, but show me it fix something. Show me it take a failing drive and recover it. You know what else they don't show you? SpinRite killing a failing drive that you had a chance before you ran SpinRite on it of actually getting the data back, and then after you ran SpinRite, now your chances of data recovery are gone. And that doesn't mean the person who created it's a bad person. I think they mean well, but I don't think they fully grasp the conditions and consequences of their actions, because well, quite frankly, they're not being held liable. But give it time. Give it time. I'll warn you and I'll warn you and I'll warn you. And that's about all I can do at this point. Those utilities don't exist for Microsoft for a reason. They're dangerous and can cause a lot of harm. And when you consider some of these utilities cost more than a hard drive, it doesn't make sense why you'd spend $100 on something to fix a $50 thing. You could buy 2 more things for what that costs. Then you can buy backup software, like I like to use Acronis, as you well know, for $30, for $40. That's good for a year. That's still less than half the cost of the utilities. And it wouldn't matter if it's an antivirus, it wouldn't matter if it's ransomware, it wouldn't matter if it's a drive failure. If it's out of warranty, it's gone. Just replace it, in warranty or out, recover your backup, regardless of why. It's, like I said, a virus, if it's malware, if it's ransomware, just recover your image. You're done. It's really no big deal. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Oh no, I got to tell you about these virus removers, and I got to tell you about these registry cleaners. That is so 2015. I'm sorry, guys, but it was great. It was great, but today, systems are different. Windows is different, and the threats that are out there are different, and how everything interacts together is different. It's sort of like, you know, a Model T from Ford from back in the early 1900s doesn't have a radio in it. It may not even have headlights, now that I think about it. Didn't have a fuel pump. Like, there's so much more that if you were low on gas in a Model T, you'd want to reverse it up a hill because the fuel tank was gravity fed, and where the hole in the tank was trying to think where the direction is, towards the back seat. So if you were trying to go up a hill and all your gas sloshed to the back of the tank, your engine will get starved of fuel and it'll fail. So if you put the car in reverse on a low tank of gas, then all the gas sloshes to where the gravity fed hole is, and you can go up the hill and then turn the car around. They don't make cars like that anymore. And well, that advice was sound advice in the early 1900s. Hey, you're a Model T owner and you're low on fuel and you need to go up that, you know, incline. Put the car in reverse. That's the trick to know, to prevent it from stalling out. That was useful advice. But on modern cars, what are you talking about? Well, the same is true on modern computers versus computers from 10 years ago. Because as much as cars have evolved in the last 100 years, so have computers evolved in the last 10 years. That quickly, and that much changes. And it's the most frustrating thing, is to get people to let go of these old ideas, unless you're still working with an old computer that has an old operating system and old software, in which case, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, VPNs. VPNs are there to protect customers' data in corporate environments and to protect corporate patented intellectual property from falling into the hands of their competitors. It's not a consumer toy. It's not designed for consumers. It's designed for employees to log into work securely. Same with secure erasing a hard drive. You know, secure erasing a hard drive is protecting customers' data from falling into hands as customers got your data. But if you've got your own data, why would you be secure erasing it? Doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, oh, because I'm going to sell the computer. Well, if your data is that important to you, take the drive out of it, you know, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous. If it was that sensitive, why was it on there to begin with? Why wouldn't you have encrypted it? Oh, because it's in my hands. That's not how the internet works, man. The fact that your computer's turned on and plugged into the internet is all they need to pull all your unencrypted data off your drive. Your driver's license, your passport, whatever it is you're so worried about falling into the wrong hands, as long as you're connected to the internet with that data unencrypted on your drive, worrying about at the end when you want to sell it or donate it, that ship has probably already sailed. It's so it's so late reacting and so reactive instead of proactive. And certainly companies don't operate that way. And so this whole idea of secure erasing drives and VPNs and CCleaner and all that stuff, It's all been misinterpreted by the consumer, but anytime a company can sell you a product you don't need to have, and it convinces you that you've spent your money well and you're going to boast and brag and recommend it to other people, they love you. They don't have a problem with that at all. The techs like me, we do, because we got to get all that stuff off of there, because a lot of times when we get calls for service, it's a consequence of that type of stuff that didn't need to be on there. And the consequence doesn't often happen immediately. It can happen months down the road, and the end user doesn't connect the two together. It takes somebody that understands what's happening to say, look, this may not have been the cause, but it wasn't helping. And if we want your computer to run faster and more reliably, then we don't want to put anything on here other than what you need. It's not a toy for most people. This is a tool, and they rely on it. So if we've got stuff on here that you're not using and that you don't need to have, let's get it off of there so that more resources are now available to you to do what you want to do, versus having firewalls and antiviruses you don't need to have that you think are superior to what's included in Windows, but they slow your computer down and might even cause crashing with blue screens after updates. They could lock you out of your own network because you've clicked the wrong item that wouldn't even have been an option if you would have left it alone. That results in a call for service. And then what do we do in service? We often remove that software the customer was convinced to put on. A lot of times that's all it is. Something really relatively simple, pretty easy to fix. And in a corporate environment, we don't allow employees to make changes to corporate computers because they could take the whole corporation down just through not knowing any better. People used to bring in their own screensavers. The flying toaster screensaver was a big IT problem. People would pirate it, illegally copy it, bring it to work on a floppy disk, and install it onto their workstation. And we would have meetings and say to the employees, these are not your computers. These are not yours. They belong to the company. And when you leave this company, that computer stays. That chair, that desk that you sit at, the building you go to, and the parking lot you're parking in, that doesn't belong to you. You're allowed to use it as a tool to do your work. But when you're not doing the work anymore, the tools belong to the company, and you have no business modifying those tools. They don't belong to you. It's disrespectful and it's inconsiderate, and it won't be tolerated. So they instructed us as technicians to stop calling it a PC. They said, it's not a personal computer. These are workstations. And I want everybody in IT to always refer to them when you're talking to the customers. These, are other employees of the company. These are workstations. Do not call them PCs. They are not personal computers. This costs companies millions of dollars, and just in some cases where people didn't listen, they lost their jobs. They said, look, you've been told, you've been warned, you've been written up, that we're done. And it seems like a stupid reason, because they just, it's one thing if you want to hang up pictures in your cubicle, but even at Intel, when people overdid their cubicles with too much stuff, they got a talking to. They said, this is all well and good. You got to take it down a notch. It's distracting. And, we don't mind. Intel would say, we don't mind if you want to, make it comfortable. But this is over the top. You've taken it too far. Take it down a notch. And if they refused, there's the door. Battery's still holding up really well here. I think what I want to do is plug it into the network and see what kind of updates we're missing. And to do that, because this does not have an Ethernet port, I'm just going to grab my USB to Ethernet adapter. I feel like it's safe to put the bottom back on, but just to keep things moving along, do that later. There doesn't seem to be anything for me to do inside of this. It's clean. It looks good. The only thing I can think of at this point would be driver updates or Asus utilities that are now missing after the reset. So let's go back to the desktop. Let's see how we're doing in that regard. Let's do Windows Update. Battery, how are we doing on battery here? 63% this whole time we've been on battery. It says there's still about 2 hours left, and we started 2 hours ago. And it did say there was an average 6-hour battery life. And running something like Cinebench for 20 minutes is pretty intense on the battery, right? Versus just sitting here at the desktop. And oh, that's funny. There's an update for my USB Ethernet adapter I just plugged in. Under update options, do we have anything under here? One available. Oh, we're already getting that. Okay. So then the other thing are the Asus updates, and that's going to be on the Asus support page. So this is the... Oh, we got something here. It says a driver IRQL not less or equal in the file RTUX. You see right at the bottom. Oh, you guys probably can't see that because HDMI output would have stopped working. So let me turn this around. This is actually the best I could hope for to see something wrong. Now, likely the reason for this error code may be related to that USB network driver it was trying to install, because the USB network driver was working fine. Why would it need a newer driver? But this screen is critical when we're trying to figure out a problem. And if you can, grab your phone and take a picture of this screen. Don't worry about the QR code. Just take a picture of the screen. Okay. And right down here at the bottom is a stop code, which says driver IRQL not less or equal. Now, I've often found these are video drivers that cause this, but it could be this, because it didn't happen until we went to put this driver on for the Ethernet. And then if you look at the name of the file that's involved, that'll tell us what failed, and it gives us the name of a file called RTUX64W10sys. So we would open Google to figure out what is related to that file. Is that related to the network card driver? Is that related to the video card driver? Give us an idea. Is that a piece of software? And usually if you Google that, and this is critical if you want to solve blue screens quickly, it's providing you some pretty basic yet head start information. Where do you start looking? When the RAM is soldered on the board, it is likely not a RAM issue. One of the benefits of soldered on RAM is that it almost never fails. When you start giving the customer the option to switch RAM out, or you've got RAM in a socket, the RAM can get loose from the socket, or the customer gets in there and they foul things up because they think they know what they're doing, yet the blue screen suggests otherwise and they refuse to make the connection. The person just says, "It wasn't me, I did everything right." Well, clearly. Anyway, soldered on RAM is much faster. It's cheaper to make the laptop that way, and most people don't even use the amount of RAM they have. Now, if you have 32 gigs or more of RAM, it's probably more than you're using. So there's no reason for that. And by the time you would need to upgrade it, you would probably be time to upgrade the entire laptop, quite frankly. So my Samsung Galaxy Book 3, for example, has 32 gigs of RAM soldered on. You cannot get it with any more RAM than that. It's a $3,000 laptop. And it's absolutely one of the fastest computers I've ever used. And I'm pretty intense with, video editing and copying files and looking at YouTube all at the same time. And the laptops, I'm barely using 22 gigs, maybe 24 gigs of RAM at most. Anyway, let me take a look here. RTUX64. Let's go to Google and let's see what that's a part of. I'm going to guess it's probably the network controller that I just plugged in. RTUX64W10.sys. What is that? The network card driver. Yep, that's exactly right in front of us the whole time, which is, as it was installing the driver for this that it didn't need, something about the driver Windows Update is providing is causing a conflict with probably some Asus software that's on here. And since there was nothing wrong with this, it plugged in, it was working, I don't think we need that driver. Or we need to download some updated Asus drivers that would have prevented this from happening, and we would have never known that we were preventing a problem if we had done that first. I'm holding the power button in because that should, after about 10 seconds, force off the computer, and that's true of all laptops and desktops and tablets and phones. You just generally hold the power button in. Some phones are a little different, iPhones, it depends, but laptops and computers for sure. We'll turn that back on and let's just see if it self-corrects. And since the only other Windows update was pretty minor, we're pretty well up to date on Windows updates. As long as this boots again with this, I would suggest we go to Asus's website, maybe download the Creator Hub and look for driver updates through the Creator Hub. I think that would be the right way to move forward with this. So as this comes up, let's see if it blue screens again. Let me take it back over to camera 2 there. Yep. Signing in. And Windows 11, again, it's very, very good at self-healing. So when you see problems like that, don't freak out. Sometimes just turning it off and back on again will resolve the issue automatically. And in rare circumstances where it doesn't, well, then we move forward accordingly. But give it a chance, let it recover, and it self-heals. This is something we never had in Windows XP or Windows 7. This is just another example of the evolution of the operating system and why we don't need to use the same techniques and software and utilities that we used to. They're not needed anymore. And this is a prime example live on camera that I could not have predicted that demonstrates exactly what I'm saying. Now, if we go to Asus's website, and this is the Vivobook. What did I say this was called? Give me just 1 second. I have to look in my screen here. M3500QC. And then I'll just type in the word BIOS because I know that should take me to the Asus support page. Here we go, M3500 support only. Okay, let's click on that one. Let's close that box, don't care about that. We are connected, we can see down here, connection is not secure. That's not good. Let's refresh. Same thing. Let's try a different link. How about here? No, same thing. How about here? Looks more promising. Taking a while. Keep going. Download center. How about that? That's coming up. Oh, no, we got a blue screen again in the same file. Okay, so now what it appears has happened. Let me jump back over here. What it appears has happened is that driver never came out. So, again, you don't need any special utilities for this. When Windows Update was putting that driver on, that's what caused this problem, and that driver's still in there. There's a couple of different ways we can solve this. One, I can just put it on Wi-Fi, right? As soon as I unplug this adapter, that driver's not in use anymore. Two, because it's me, I have backup adapters made. No two are made by the same company for just this reason, where a different driver would be utilized. Three, let's say you're a home user, you don't have Wi-Fi, you need this to work, Okay, we just go into the device manager and uninstall the previous driver. It's that simple. Those are three completely different ways that you could go about resolving this permanently without, again, falling back to some company trying to sell you some piece of software, even if it's freeware, that consumes resources, that monitors what you're doing, and ultimately is maybe at its best fixing a problem you could have fixed on your own with the tools you have in front of you, the keyboard and the mouse. So once this comes back up, I'll put the screen back up on this and share it with you, and then we'll look in that device manager. We'll find the USB network adapter, and there should be a rollback driver option. And it's designed for this very reason, and it's not often we get to catch this live. So this is actually a pretty special day. I'm really super glad that this happened. And by the way, I introduced this problem, me introducing this component. We had a reliable system until I did that. This is called end user problems, right? And you could say, well, it's Windows Update's fault, but it may not be. It may be that the Asus website has provided updated drivers that prevents this error from happening, and Windows Update doesn't know that. They think we have the latest drivers and introduces a conflict. So it's not Windows Update's fault. But it's not my fault because I added a network. I mean, you should be able to do that, but I definitely introduced the problem. And that's why getting these driver updates is so important, because you can avoid problems. And if you avoid a problem, how will you know you avoided it if you never had the problem? How do you know? And the way I answer this is I say, look, do you keep your drivers up to date? Yes, I do. And when's the last time you had a problem? I can't remember. Well, that's how you know it's working. So let's see. Oh, I was going to share the screen first. Let's go back to the screen. And let's go to right click on the start menu to device manager. Let's find this network card. Right there, double click. Driver. What's that say? Roll back driver. Let's hit that. You don't have to answer this. I don't think you have to answer it. Say it seemed more reliable. Are you sure? Yes. Probably see that version change back. And now likely that problem has gone away. You'll see down in the bottom right corner, it's reestablishing a connection. And we probably solved that blue screen unless that driver reinstalls. So while we're waiting, let's try one more time. Let's restore the website we were at. We'll go to the download center for Asus. We'll switch to the US website here for us. We can accept the cookies, I don't care. And we've got a make and model or product type. Sometimes they have like an auto search. Let's just say it's a, oh, it wants a serial number. Let's do it this way. It's a laptop. And it's a Vivobook. What did we call it? Just regular Vivobook? And the model number was what, M? Started with the letter M, didn't it? Whoops. Tough to do it with a touchpad. ZenBook. Some M's down there. Vivobook 15. Should be in here somewhere. So R. Goes from A to F to K to R. Okay. Let me right click on the start menu one more time. Let me just check out what it says there. You'd think the Asus website could just pull this up. Vivobook M3500QC. So if we go back, maybe there's a search. M3500QC. Will that find it? That's it, right there. I work harder than I need to. Your products. No. Tools, no. Oh, so these are the search results over here. Driver and tools, that's what I want. And now, so I don't have to find this again for this laptop. Wait, there's different variations. We've got this one down here. I'm going to bookmark this page, or make it a favorite as they call it these days, so we won't have to search for it in the future, because we will be coming back here in the future at some point. So just hit the star and done. And we can go directly here from now on. So the MediaTek, that's your wireless LAN. There's an AMD chipset driver. What I'm looking for, yeah, look at here. There's a critical NVIDIA graphics driver. But that looks like it's from 2024, so I'm not too worried about that, I don't think. There should be some software utilities. Screen Expert, what else do we have? ProArt Creator Hub. My Asus is your central hub for Asus software designed to maintain your system, optimize your performance. See, stuff like this is what gets wiped out when you do the restart or the reset of Windows. And it's not going to go on unless you put it on. And when customers don't know any better, they end up handicapping themselves with or crippling their computer's performance unknowingly. And then they're like, oh, this thing's just not running right. I reset it. It's even worse. Well, yeah, you just made it worse. I wish I would have known what the problem was before you reset it, because now I got to undo your reset, figure out what's missing to put it back. And then I got to figure out where's the problem that initiated the reset, which in most cases was wiped out by the reset. So it is a little maddening sometimes. But yeah, so we're going to download that. And my guess is whatever the missing stuff is likely what's causing the blue screen from that updated driver, which clearly we don't need anyway, at least not today. But that driver that's updated exists for a reason. But it's important we put things in the right order. We're putting in a driver that helps prevent a future update from crashing, but we've already got the future updates in. It was important we put the driver in before that so we didn't experience a blue screen. And when I'm saying update, I don't necessarily just mean a Windows update, but a BIOS update or a driver update, a chipset driver, a graphics card driver, any of that. Ideally is you're going to have those updates in before you need them, and then you won't realize why you ever needed it, because you won't experience the problem that the new driver was written for and updated. And really, they weren't doing it for fun. The companies aren't spending money on their employees to write code and update code and pay their web developers to then make it available on the website and then pay for all the bandwidth for you to download it for free just because they had nothing else better to do. But you don't necessarily have to know why they're doing it, because there's so many drivers, it may be near impossible to stay on top of the constant influx of updates that come in from all the different software companies, driver companies, hardware companies, that it's overwhelming. But what you do need to at least understand is they came out for a reason. They're offering them for free for a reason, and there's no reason you should pay a third-party developer for drivers, nor should you allow them to consume your resources with their third-party driver software that they claim is free, but it's not free. They are making money from you, and the only way you can stop that, whether they're spying on you and selling your data, you don't know, right? If it's free, they're doing something. They're doing something. So just take it off your system, uninstall it. You don't need it. And then you don't have that concern anymore. And more of your resources are back to being available for you to use instead of for them to use. Okay, this is about downloaded here. Now, I'm not familiar with this piece of software, so let's just see if this is what I wanted, I mean, you probably want all of it, quite honestly, because that's what the laptop would have come with, is all of that stuff. Start my Asus. I don't want to create an account. Do I have to? Rats. Looks like I have to. You can log in with Facebook, Google, Microsoft, or Apple. All right, I don't want this one. And it's fine that it's on there. If we're not using it, it's not really doing much but taking up some space. Let's try, let's go back over to the download center. What's that? Close that. Let's go back. Let's go to, what else do we have? Screen Expert, I'm not worried about. I guess we want the ProArt. Yeah, the fingerprint driver, we're not using it, so I don't care. See all downloads under utilities. Yeah, the ProArt Creator Hub, I guess, is what I want. Let's grab that one. And it looks like they're pulling this all in now through the Microsoft Store. Now, some applications in the Microsoft Store require you to be logged in with a Microsoft account, but these don't, because we're not logged in with a Microsoft account now, and you can see we're accessing all this stuff just fine. What I'm looking for is the Asus software that will analyze everything on the system and let us know if all of our drivers are up to date or not. So while that installs, let's go back over to camera 1 and then also back to the chat room, because I've been so focused on this over here that I haven't been looking at what's going on in the chat room. Barry Klein says it's not swearing, it's using technical terms. Ben Laird wants to know if I still recommend Malwarebytes Premium for Windows 11. I do. I still utilize Malwarebytes paid version for all of my clients. All of my business clients all run it. And I provide it as part of my service, so I don't rely on them to get around to doing it. And it's saved a lot of problems from occurring because employees sometimes click on search results that take them places and Malwarebytes blocks it. And then that saves me the support call of having to deal with the aftermath. So the price of Malwarebytes is so worth it for me. I've got one client with around 16 machines, and all 16 machines have it. And when I do maintenance, I'll look at the history of Malwarebytes to see if there's any history of Malwarebytes blocking anything. And it's usually, you know, there's either a couple items or a few pages of items of this happened on this day and this happened on that day. And Malwarebytes is just telling me, here's what I did for this computer right here. And then, of course, for a big company like that, you can also centralize that so that you have one sort of computer you can log in and administer and see what's going on all the machines. I still am old school. I like to treat each machine individually. And all I need to do is see that Malwarebytes has blocked sites to make it worth whatever, $30 a year or whatever it is, because they just saved themselves a $125 service call every single time Malwarebytes does that. Malwarebytes is also training the employee what not to do. So when the employee clicks on a link they shouldn't have clicked on and Malwarebytes says, hey, that's a bad link, it's also correcting and educating the end user. Don't do that. Okay, this brings us to the ProArt Creator Hub. I clicked I understand. Which background do I want? I don't care. Okay, and now that's installing the ProArt Creator Hub, which I think has the little driver section on it that I want. ProArt update service is not installed. Well, we definitely want the update service. That's the whole point of this. The computers, the internet, the software you use, the operating systems, they're all still experimental and they're changing rapidly. It's not like, hey, we figured out how to make toast. There's a toaster, we're done. And now you can use the same toaster forever. It'll always toast bread. And when it comes to computers, they're always evolving and changing. And if you're going to be using a computer this early in development, it's definitely not a finished product. But they need to bring the money in order to pay for ongoing research and development. Somebody's got to pay for that so they can improve it, so they can come out with a new product, and around the wheel goes. So again, if you just look at cars and look how much cars have come along with no heat or air conditioning or shocks, things like that, tires, everything's changed because the early cars right up through, I'd even say the 1990s, were still relatively experimental. Now, they've sort of leveled off, and while there's still evolution happening, it's not happening at the scale it used to. ProArt Creator Hub service is complete. Please restart the application. Okay. Let's minimize that and get it out of my face. Let's get rid of that. I suspect there's also probably an NVIDIA driver here, and that's another critical one. Chipset drivers, graphics card drivers, and browser extensions are the three main causes for most computer owners' calls for service. Today in 2025, these are your three big causes: chipset drivers, graphics card drivers, browser extensions. It's so easy to fix this stuff. Browser extensions are almost always user-created problems. They put on ad blockers, they put on like sound muters, and then it has some consequence at some other site that doesn't work anymore because they added this unnecessary nonsense onto their browser that is also spying on you. So there's two reasons to not have that stuff. Try and clear your browser of all extensions except what is absolutely necessary. And if you're trying to see something on a website that's not working right, the first thing you do is just temporarily disable that browser extension. In most cases, it fixes the problem 95% of the time. And the other 5%, there's something else going on. And sometimes even video drivers or chipset drivers fix a portion of that as well. And then what you're left with, what's remainder, those are the real problems that we solve. And that just doesn't happen as often anymore. We don't normally need to dig down much deeper than that for most cases. So I'm providing you that information so that, well, you know where to start if you experience that or you know somebody else who is. Chipset drivers, video drivers, make sure you got the latest. Check those browser extensions. If you're not sure, take them out. Even if you think they're not the problem, verify. Just a click. It's free. Let's see. I was looking for the Asus ProArt. It's my Asus ProArt Creator Hub. There it is. Let's switch over to the desktop here right quick. Now, do we have any sort of driver update? Performance optimization, fan profile. Oh, you see, it's not in whisper mode. This would be the quiet mode. And it's not in performance mode. That would be the loud mode. It is put right in the middle where it should be. Current CPU frequency and temperatures look good. Voltage looks good. Memory usage, remember, out of 16 gigs, we're only using less than 5 of it. It's ridiculous. People put so much in there. There is a fan calibration. if you want to do that. Oh, sorry, that's not a fan calibration. It's color calibration for if you're an artist or you're doing photography or video editing and you want to make sure your color of your screen is being represented accurately. That's what that's for. What I'm looking for is drivers. Where have they hidden that? Down here. Color control. Work smart. Performance. Resource monitor. App power. Clean files. See, this is why you don't need third-party utilities. When you can get tools like this direct from the manufacturer, whether it's the operating system, Microsoft, or it's the hardware manufacturer, the motherboard manufacturer, you should be using these before you think you need that other stuff. Because mostly this is going to be more specific for the machine you're on and probably much more effective without necessarily spying on you. But I don't see drivers. If we look, for example, with NVIDIA, let's bring that up here. Look, there's something waiting to be installed. I didn't even know that. Let's agree and continue. I was hoping this ProArt was going to have what I was looking for in here, but I guess not. Still another utility I'm going to have to look for. But this laptop, when it was new, it had all those utilities on it from Asus. And it was that darn reset that wiped it all out. Now I can't find what I'm looking for. We're running version 546.80. Okay, well, is there a new version? That's what I want to know. Let's close that out. Let's go back down here. Let's just take a look if, what do we, right click? No, double click. This is an RTX, hold on a minute. RTX 3050 laptop GPU. So we'll come back over to the browser. We're going to go to NVIDIA. Bring up NVIDIA's website. We're going to look for drivers, which is kind of hidden up here. And we can have it auto search, or we can just manually look for the driver. Either way, whatever you're most comfortable with. Let's do a manual driver. We're looking for GeForce drivers. It's going to be an RTX 30 series for a laptop. And it's a 3050, so pretty much baseline. For Windows 11, which is only 64-bit. And we'll hit find and see what the latest version is compared to what we have. So latest version, 57242, is a much bigger number. This is the game-ready driver, but what I really want is the studio driver, because this is a workstation and not a gaming PC. Studio driver emphasizes stability over performance. That's what I want. View that one. And we're going to download this. And yeah, that should be fine. Now, for all I know, that blue screen that was occurring with the network adapter driver could be because this NVIDIA driver is out of date. But for all I know, I also have other out-of-date drivers for any of the devices in the device manager. You know how many devices are in there, right? That's a lot of drivers. So having something automatically checked from Asus, I'm sure exists, I just haven't found it yet. And then it can let us know. If we don't have that, we can just download every driver Asus has for this laptop and install it, because if it's the same driver, it won't hurt, and if it's a newer driver, it'll update it. But that's really the hard way to go about doing it. But we don't have to do it one way or the other, right? We have options. Okay, that's installed. Let's go ahead and, or downloaded rather, let's go ahead and install it. Yeah, that's 54680. Let's close that. Minimize that. Click yes there. Okay. And now it extracts. Now it's extracting the file we downloaded into the installer files. Once those installer files are extracted, it can begin the install process, or the setup where it asks us all the questions. And while I'm waiting, let's take another look here in the chat for anything else I might have missed. Jasmine Decker says, good evening from the Netherlands. Hey, welcome in. Thanks for joining us here. Graham Edwards says, hello from the UK. Welcome in, Graham. Are browser extensions like that still being made? Well, a popular browser extension would be an ad blocker. And then what happens is people don't want to see the ads on YouTube, right? So they put the ad blocker in and it works for a little while. And then YouTube says, well, we're seeing a lot of these ads getting blocked. They figure out it's the ad blocker and they work around it. And they'll do things like videos will pause or not play, and it'll take a customer a while to figure out their ad blocker is causing all their YouTube issues. And quite often there's an update to the ad blocker that's responding to YouTube's workaround. So then the ad blocker provides a workaround and you have to update your ad blocker. But then YouTube realizes the ad blocker's been updated to the YouTube update, so YouTube updates to work around it again, so then the ad blocker updates to work around YouTube. So if you just take the ad blocker off, you don't deal with this constant going around in circles. And ultimately, YouTube is trying to frustrate you to get your ad blocker off of there because it's costing them money.
Battery juice from.
What's that?
Battery juice.
Oh, on my laptop?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know?
You can see it.
It says 45% remaining.
Be small.
Mara's the kind of person that if the gas tank is down to 3/4 of a tank, it's time to get a
half a tank.
Half a tank on a modern car means you can travel about
sure
200 miles,
so.
150 to 200 miles, and she's worried if I don't get gas right now, I only have 150 to 200 more miles. So it doesn't surprise me you think that.
Even last minute, but
that's not last minute. The battery's 45%.
I'm not looking at it up close. From the screen, it looks like there's like 10%. I
understand. Unfortunately, there's only like 3 notches, three bars on a battery. So you have your first third, your second
Just look
third.
low. That's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for your help, I guess. It's a half full tank. Yeah. Some people are half tank fillers. I'm not. I'm the kind of guy that'll take it. Look, modern day car. Here's another example of technology where the old technology refuses to be let go. Cars had a fuel gauge. It was pretty vague. There's full, right? There's the F, and then there's the E. And when the needle was on the E, you could usually, on most cars, get a little below the E. Good 2-3 needles worth before you were truly out of gas. Modern cars, by comparison, have a pretty damn accurate assessment of what your average miles per gallon are, and you can even reset it every time you fill the tank. And computers on the cars are now smart enough to know you had this many gallons and now you had this many gallons, so clearly you filled the tank, and you don't even have to do this anymore on really modern cars. And I would write down how many miles I went between tanks or between fill-ups and how many gallons it took and divide the two numbers before I started trusting the estimations on the screen, the averages, and the averages are dead on, and they've been dead on since around 2010. So this is, when I say modern, I mean since 2010. So why do modern cars still have the gauge? And they have the digital readout of how many miles approximately are left before you need gas. Even the gauges aren't even real anymore. They're digital screens that look like a gauge. Can we just get rid of the gauge? We don't need it anymore. What we need to see is estimated miles remaining. Now, when my estimated miles remaining is about 2 gallons of gas or about 50 miles, let me know. That's exactly what the Mustang used to do. The Mustang I had from 2013 You're driving around and you hear this ding, ding, ding. It would be right over the speakers. Bing, bing, bing. And right in the middle of the dash, normally where your speedometer is, it says you need gas, approximately 50 miles of fuel remaining. Well, that's a long way. 50 miles can get me across town and back. So again, I appreciate the heads up, but we're still fine. Then you get down to about 25 miles. Bing, bing, bing. Okay, 25 miles. Then it starts annoying you more and more. So yeah, usually when I hit that 50-mile mark, I'm starting to look for a gas station, but I'm not freaking out. But other people, they want to see that needle up towards the F at all times. Man, I grew up putting $5 of gas in the car. That's all I could afford. And when my gas gauge broke, I had to learn how to figure out when I was out of gas before I ran out of gas by writing down my odometer and how many gallons I bought, so I knew approximately how many miles per gallon I got. And I never ran out of gas. I kept it that accurate. Okay, let's go back over here and show you what I'm doing. Studio driver is what I want. Smart app is fine. That's fine. And now it should let us know whenever there's a driver from NVIDIA. It'll let us know here. But you wouldn't know if this is hidden. So if you have this NVIDIA logo, you want to be able to see that at all times because it will tell you there if there's an update waiting. Otherwise, you need to remember to go and check that from time to time. Now, just this one driver alone could be what was causing the issue with the network card. And you know what? I want to experiment with that theory. There still may be other drivers we have to update, so I don't want to minimize the... I don't want to oversimplify this, but it could be that it is that simple. It's possible. Let's check for updates and see if it still wants to offer us that network card driver. And we're just about at 3 hours here on this Sunday's broadcast. And I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today. I don't see it being offered anymore. Oh, wait, here it is. Let's do this one more time. Just because I'm a glutton for punishment. If I change too many drivers at once and then I put this other driver back in and it fixes it, I don't know which driver was the issue. If I put this driver back on now and we still have a crash, see that driver's in now. If we blue screen again, which was happening when I was in the browser, let's just close the browser and reopen it. And because the crashes are random, I'm not quite sure how to recreate it other than, you know, we go back and do some of the same things we were doing before and see what happens, you know, if it happens again. And if you keep your updates constantly up to date, then you don't react to problems. You just never have the problems, and you live in blissful ignorance that you prevented all these problems from happening because you stayed current. Instead of reacting because something bad happened and now you got to figure out why. So there's definitely a philosophy here that not everybody adopts, and that's fine. You don't have to. But that is the logic, that is the method behind the madness. Now it shows the latest BIOS for this machine came out a year and a half ago, version 3.16. In fact, version 3.15, you can see there must have been a problem here because it was only 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks after they released 3.15 that 3.16 came out. So there must have been correcting something that happened over here. Did we see what version of BIOS? Let me, oh, I guess I can't show you the BIOS in this, can I? Well, we're not blue screen. I mean, so far, no blue screen has occurred. Let's go back to those utilities. Drivers and tools. I guess Asus calls them tools. Come on. Doesn't want to go to tools. One-click driver download and install. What is that? Things are not clicking. Let me refresh this page. Oh, switch to the US website. That might help. I lost my specific page. Should be under my favorites though, right? I bookmarked it. Where did it go? Well, rats. Scroll down a little further in my previous results here. This one? These touchpads, it's constantly clicking on things I didn't want to click on. This is all Q&A or FAQ, troubleshooting, product support. I want the drivers. Stay away from places like that aren't the manufacturer, right? This is not Asus. This is not Asus. I cannot strongly recommend enough that you stay away from those places. It's always a risk. They're not guaranteed to cause a problem, but they're not guaranteed to not cause a problem either. So let's just stay here for a minute and see what happens. Chipset driver, audio driver, graphics driver, card reader. You know, he probably needs the card reader. Well, that's an old driver though. 2021, that probably came in from Windows Update already. Software and utility. Let's go back to that. So they call it tools up there and utilities down here. All right. My Asus Splendid. Don't know what that is. Asus system control interface for the full Asus experience. I don't know what that means. Don't know what that means. Well, the two big ones are going to be your chipset driver. And again, Asus has not updated this. You know, AMD has come out with chipset drivers newer than this. And what I would do is I would simply go down here to the Asus Adrenalin software and bring that up. Skip this and just take a look to see that we're up to date. Check for updates. Make sure that that is up to date. Now, that is up to date. If you have a version of the Adrenalin software that doesn't show you this current version, I don't know why AMD does this. Just manually go to, just type in AMD drivers. Right? Or if you don't have it at all, but you have an AMD system, just type in AMD drivers. And then click on this first link for AMD, which is not loading correctly. There's my blue screen. Aha! And so it did happen again. And, see, I'm glad I did that. That tells me that the video driver that we update is not it's not a conflict with the video driver. There's a conflict somewhere else. And it definitely reiterates something is out of date on this machine, because the latest network card driver, even though we don't need it, not yet, is having a conflict with some other driver that likely was updated, and it may have been updated specifically because it can cause a problem with other drivers. And around the wheel goes. So again, this is very easily resolved. I've already shown you, we just roll back the driver. It's no big deal. And because this isn't even staying with the laptop, it's not like I have to figure this out. It just really bothers me to not know. In most cases in this line of work, we don't spend too much time trying to figure out why, unless we're seeing a problem more than once. So if, for example, a customer says they're having some printing issue with some printer, we likely have never seen that printer before. There's so many different makes and models. And if it turns out there's a certain driver you need to use on Windows 11 and you can't get it through Windows Update and you have to go through some certain process for that specific printer, we probably won't remember that or write it down because we won't see that printer again. But if we do see it again and we go, oh, I just worked on this, what did I do to fix it? Then I'll make notes. I'll then invest a little extra time to go, okay, well, if I've seen it twice, now maybe I'll see it 3 times. And then the 3rd time, I'll be ready for it. Most problems we fix, we only ever see them 1 time. That's it. So taking the time to make notes, it's a waste of time, and then trying to find those notes when you're looking for them, assuming there'd be some reason you're looking for them, which there normally isn't, would take longer than just simply reevaluating and fixing it again. At which point you'd say, okay, I've done this before. Now I'll take notes. See what I'm getting at? Then those notes will be closer to the top of wherever you're leaving your notes, and much more easier to locate the next time you need them. But if it's a problem that hasn't happened in a long time and you've got this massive database of notes that's called Google, you can see how easy it is to just get completely lost and not be able to find what you're looking for, even in your notes. There's just too many notes. So we keep what's valid, what's relevant, what's current. I don't need to know the notes that I have on Windows 7. Those are gone. The video tips I have on Windows 7, those are gone. There's no reason to keep them up anymore. All it does is confuse people, the average user that doesn't realize Windows 7 is not a thing anymore. And for the enthusiasts that want to preserve Windows 7, I never agreed to help them with that. You're on your own. That's not my responsibility to preserve the, how to get a, trying to think what was a popular one, how to get Windows 7 installed on a modern motherboard that was made for Windows 8 or Windows 10, I think it was. There's this whole routine you could do, and people are like, oh, thank you for making the video. Not anymore. That's all. That ship sailed a long time ago. We're all over here now. And for people that are like, well, that's good for, historical reasons. No, it isn't, because it's creating this huge video library where people can't find what they're looking for. There's too much mess. There's too much clutter. And so we remove all that old information because it's hazardous now. It can help people, but it's mostly hurting people. So we just take it out and say that's no longer applicable in modern day society with modern day computers and modern day operating systems. Forget about it. Move on. Keep up. If you want to stay behind and you want to preserve, you're on your own. I'm not telling you not to, but I'm not here to help you with that. Nobody has ever paid me to preserve a computer. Never, not once. But every month the bills come in for the mortgage and the electricity and the water and the internet and the phone and the car and the fuel. What do? Which one am I going to leave behind so I can focus on the other thing, right? So I'm going to focus on the things that help the most people, make the biggest difference, make me some money so I can pay the bills that are never going to stop. Every month those bills are coming in like clockwork. Nothing stops them. And I need to be ready every month to be able to pay them. And since nobody else is paying my bills, right? I don't just pass that off to somebody and say, here, take care of this for me. I would love that. Somebody else take care of that. I have to focus my attention on what the majority of people are needing, and I want to keep my audience updated so that they don't need me, right? It's kind of a silly thing if I'm putting myself out of work by telling you all the business secrets, but these are the current trends, and we're going to focus on those trends. Because sure, I can make a few dollars selling Beanie Babies and Furbies. That's all past. The number of collectors are reduced to almost nothing now. You can't make a living doing that anymore. And if other people still want to be passionate about collecting them, let them. But I'm going to sell one a month? I can't. It's not going to work. So it's nothing personal. It's just like practical. How do I keep myself from having to close the business? And that is by looking at the trends and looking where things are going, including changing tools. If the tools I've been using for years aren't being used anymore, I need to upgrade my tools. I never used to have Torx bits and spudgers. That's how the industry has changed, and I've had to adjust and figure out which ones are good. I don't know. I bought a bunch of them, or I buy one, Doesn't work quite as good as I'd hoped. I buy another one, and I eventually find the right tool, and then I stick to that tool until something else comes out. It requires some other kind of tool or gadget to do the job. Power supply testers, big waste of money. People waste their money, in my opinion, buying a power supply tester. Power supplies are so cheap. Your best power supply tester is to have a spare power supply. It's cheaper, and the results are 100% guaranteed every time. Testers, not always very accurate. They often cost more than the whole power supply, and the results can be inaccurate. What a waste of time and money, in my opinion. So anyway, not to mention you got to learn how to use it. It's not like you're going to plug it in, it does everything for you. And at the end of the day, if your power supply tester tells you what you already know, which is your power supply is bad, which you would have figured out by just putting a separate power supply in there to check it, you're going to end up putting a power supply in there anyway to replace it, negating the time and the money spent on buying and using the power supply tester. You could have just cut to the chase and been done with it. Again, trying to be efficient, be practical, move on. A lot of people looking for help. We want to help as many people as possible. That makes people happier, makes us more money. We don't stress about paying the bills at the end of the month. Right? It all makes sense, doesn't it? I would love to see the tech enthusiast channels talk about this side of things, because they're not in this line of work. They're just having fun. Hey, I have fun too. Somebody should tell my face, this is fun for me. All right, we're a little over 3 hours, so I think we'll wrap it up. Just looking for any final questions or comments before we go. Leslie Cavan says hello. Welcome in, Leslie. Martin Hogg says hello. Hey, welcome in, Martin. I don't see anything else in here, so I'm gonna guess we've answered it. Oh wait, Zvi Manor wants to know, did you see the latest article from Microsoft that came out 3 days ago that Windows 11 version 2.4H2 is not supporting 8th and 9th gen Intel CPUs? No, I can't say that I've heard anything about that. There's Oystein joining us. Hey, Oystein, I didn't even realize you were in there. Well, hold on. Zvi may have just opened a can of worms here. I don't know how you can undo a compatibility. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you're compatible or you're not. So I think maybe somebody screwed up if that's an official article, or like everything else on the internet, there's a bunch of hogwash that people are quick to believe. Very skeptical at hearing this, because it doesn't make any logical sense. There's no reason that I'm aware of that Intel would do that. This just sounds like haters creating gullible information to see how gullible people are. But let me do a search before I make myself look like too much of a fool, because you never know with Microsoft. That doesn't make sense. Microsoft not supporting Windows 11 8th, 9th. Let's see. Let's take a look. Oh, Tom's Hardware. There's a respectable site that I trust. 8 hours ago, this is like fresh off the presses. Intel 8th, 9th, and 10th gen removed from the CPU support list. This may be related to Intel's move of 7th to 10th gen integrated graphics to a legacy support model in December. So last I checked, December's like 10 months away. But hold on, let's just see. The latest version of the Windows OS, Windows 11 24H2, now includes official support for some of the newest Intel chips. However, we're surprised to see that the Intel's 8th, 9th, and 10th gen processors are no longer officially supported. Though Windows 11 24H2 has been pushed to consumers for several months, Microsoft just released the first official CPU support list on its hardware developer site. I think it's a mistake. Microsoft doesn't explain its CPU support decisions. All it really says going forward, subsequently released in future generations of processors which meets the same principles will be considered supported, even if not explicitly listed. Well, I mean, they're saying even if it's not listed, it doesn't mean it's not supported. They literally, I'm going to read this again. Going forward, subsequently released in future generations of processors which meet the same principles, which I don't know what principles is defined as, they will be considered as supported even if not explicitly listed. They will be considered as supported even if not explicitly listed. This is what happens when people jump to conclusions. This is the internet, man. Verify, verify, and verify before you react, and start spreading to the world. The sky is falling because an acorn has fallen on your head. We taught that to us when I was about 4 years old. So I think whatever your panic or anxiety, whatever caused you to bring that up in the chat room, it is way too early. It's until we hear verification back that there was no clerical error and that was intended as it was written, I would assume, given the circumstance, let's take a look at the circumstance. You've got a 9th generation Intel processor. Just go with me on this. And for months, Microsoft has been hounding you and warning you and scaring you. You need to upgrade to Windows 11 before, in fine print, before October 14, 2025, which is still a long way away. And you think, you know, I'm going to wait and I'm going to do that in 2025, such as I did for one of my clients recently. And we go through the process of converting their partition from MBR to GPT, and we turn on Secure Boot, right? We make sure TPM is enabled. We go through the time-consuming download and installation of the upgrade from 10 to 11, and it's successful, and everything's good. PC Health Report says everything's good. If what is written is true, that means to verify it, you download the PC Health Check app and see if it tells you your computer's not compatible. And that's a pretty basic thing. Even Tom's Hardware, their journalists should know to verify that. Because if what that's saying is true, then when we do the PC health check that verifies if your computer's compatible, it would have passed if it's a 9th gen. And now, according to this article, it's not passing. So what you're freaking out about, or what you're concerned, or what you want to talk about, is all just how you're interpreting a lack of information with your imagination without any verification. It's silly. I'm sorry, but I think the whole thing's silly, because it wouldn't make any sense for customers to go through all that effort to meet the Windows 11 requirement, only to have Microsoft pull the rug out from under you and say, we changed our mind. I think if that were to actually happen, there is going to be hell to pay. There's going to be some pretty big lawsuits from very large multi-billion-dollar corporations that are going to sue Microsoft. I think there will be some very legal financial ramifications from the companies that made those investments. Maybe they bought a new computer 2 years ago that's a 10th gen specifically to upgrade to Windows 11. And maybe they spent $15 million on new machines plus the IT department to configure them, only for Microsoft to say, no, we decided we're not doing that anymore. The financial consequences of this are financially mind-blowing. I don't think Microsoft has this option. I think this would cost Microsoft hundreds of millions, and I think the European Union would probably fine them so much money that it would just be mind-boggling. That's why I think the information is too early. It's not clear. I think, again, maybe a clerical error, a misunderstanding, a lack of clarity. But if you can show me the PC Health Check app saying that a 9th or 10th gen Intel CPU is the reason why you're not Windows 11 compatible, please screenshot that and send it to me. In the meantime, this is just playground chatter. Until we hear from the official source to clarify what was written by the official source, I wouldn't worry about it. I can't see that's doable. But I've been wrong before. But I do believe that if I'm wrong, Microsoft is going to be paying in hundreds of millions of dollars in legal actions. It's an interesting article. And I bet you it's generating a lot of clicks and making Tom's Hardware a lot of money. And it worked because here you are talking about it. No verification, nothing. So what are my thoughts on it? I don't know yet. We need verification first. Not clear. But I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. At the same time, I kind of wish you didn't, because it's just open to interpretation. And Microsoft needs to clarify that. I'm sure they will, by the way. And we'll follow up with it one way or the other. We'll find out what happened. Mark Gaines with a £2 super chat. Thank you, Mark. Andy Kane says it's probably all hearsay. Well, it's the lack of information. See, here's what happens. I'm going to explain to you the way human beings work. It's taken me a long time to figure this out. If I call you and you don't call me back, and I wait and wait for your call, and I get no return phone call, how do I know you got my message? Are you mad at me? Did something happen to you? Have you been in an accident? Are you sick? You see, the human imagination, lacking any clarification or verification, goes to work and comes up with all this nonsense. And then what does a human do? They go and they call their other mutual friend and say, you know, I called so-and-so and he's not calling me back. I guess I pissed him off, or I don't know, a guy's being a jerk. And your friend will go, really? He's being a jerk? He's not calling you back? He does sound like a jerk. Now, this whole sort of momentum builds, all because somebody didn't just go, hey, I'm busy, can I call you back in a minute? Or can I call you back Tuesday? You blew them off. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you're like, oh, you're right in the middle of something, the phone rang, I'll get back to that later, and then you just forgot. And now the people who called are like, did he get my message? Is he ignoring me? Does he not like me? The lack of verifying information for clarification results in the imagination coming up with whatever you can come up with and then conveying that to other human beings, you know, and away it goes. It's maddening. I want accurate, verified information before I react. That's it. I'm interested, but I'm not reacting because I'm not certain there's anything to react to here yet. Not until I verify and clarify. Why would I work myself up for nothing? Too old for that. Mark Gaines said I missed his super chat. Oh, geez, I probably missed a bunch of people's super chats. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's go to my viewer activity tab here and give a shout out and a thank you once again for all of your generous support and contributions today. Again, starting with Mark Gaines as the most recent, working our way back. Thank you to Mark Gaines. Shamin Kashvirez renews membership, now a member for 20 months. Said, Kerry, any updates regarding the review of the Minis Forum DEG1 eGPU dock, the external GPU holder? We have it, and we intend on testing it when the X1 AI is released, which should be a couple of weeks from now. It is in the pipeline. Thank you. Thank you for renewing your membership. Planet Cryos, thank you for your $2 super chat earlier and verifying this did have Windows 11 Home on it. Mark Gaines with a 10-pound super chat. He says, here's a little something for the channel and also wants me to check my phone. Thank you for that reminder too. Again, from Planet Cryos, there's a couple of $5 super chats. Paul O'Brien, thank you for renewing your membership. He's a member here for 20 months now. Ben Laird, thank you for your 10-pound super chat. Our friend, of course, Charlie Purdy with $10 earlier. And of course, Buster, shout out, huge shout out and thank you to our good friend Buster. Jose Lopez just contributed here in super chat. Thank you, Jose. And let's check the phone one more time and wrap it up for today. Leave it on a blue screen just to have a little cliffhanger here. Yeah, real easy solution. Unplug the network adapter. Put it on Wi-Fi. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Mark Gaines with a $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you, Mark. Cheers. Mark's been very generous to us, as has Charlie Purdy and Buster and Paul Gray also. Of course, a super shout out to Buster for that PayPal contribution that he also contributed. Very generous, very kind of all of you, and we can't thank you enough. I think that's going to wrap it up for us for today. I hope you've learned a little something about diagnostic technique and maintenance and the avoidance of any third-party applications unless they're something you absolutely need or from large well-known manufacturers like Adobe and Microsoft, or maybe you have a specialty app from a company you know and trust and you've been using them. That's fine. It's this curiosity, you know, you get online, you start downloading apps. System utilities are the worst unless they come from Microsoft or an official source or a trusted source that you're really familiar with. You should be using, first and foremost, all the utilities from the manufacturer of either the operating system, in such case, or the hardware manufacturer. That should be your first go-to. That's it. If there are any exceptions to that, let's talk about it. You know, you'd have to tell me what you've got for me to say, okay, that'd be an exception. The overall rule is, if you want things smooth and reliable, you don't want to worry about your privacy being spied on, or stay away from the free stuff, stay away from tune-up utilities, stay away from drive recovery, VPNs, unless you have an exception of why you specifically might need it outside of business. They are likely going to cause you more problems than they're helping you with. At the end of the day, it's just my advice from a tech. You decide for yourself, and then of course prepare accordingly. If you decide to do your own thing, understand you're going to have your own consequences that in my line of work I'm trying to help you to avoid, but maybe you like that. I don't know, everybody's different. Or maybe it's worth it, right? Maybe you've got something that really is a pain in the butt, but you feel it's worth the hassle. For me, if I'm not getting paid to deal with it, it ain't worth the hassle for me. Thomas Robinson with a £1.99 in super chat. Right on. Thank you, Thomas. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks as always, Tamara, working in the background, all our administrative tasks being done there, and answering your emails. You can reach out to us at our email address, in our forums. All the links are in the video notes below today's video. And as I mentioned earlier, SCD keys, where we can get Windows and Microsoft Office license keys with support. You can contact them for any problems for 6 months at about 90% off the retail cost. And they're real, they're legit. If you have any sort of a negative experience, something doesn't go right with SCD keys, let them know, they'll fix it. I promise you, they'll fix it. If they don't fix it, you tell me they didn't fix it, it'll be fixed. I want you to know 100% I stand behind it. I use it myself in my line of work, and there's no risk, okay? In a worst case scenario, which almost never happens, you just reach out to me and I'll take care of it. But usually that's just not a thing. They're very good at what they do, or I wouldn't be recommending them here, but nobody's perfect. Sometimes mistakes get made, but it's pretty darn rare. And when it happens, don't just think, oh, I've been scammed. You've not been scammed. Sometimes they don't know a mistake's been made until you let them know, and they'll fix it. And if they still don't, then you let me know, and I guarantee it gets fixed. So I wouldn't make that promise to you if that was costing me money and ruining my reputation. What's in it for me? So just keep that in mind. If you need a Windows license key or an Office license key, save some money. Coupon code is in the description below. That'll wrap it up for me for today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Tomorrow is a United States government holiday, President's Day. Used to be called Washington's birthday or something. I don't know, but all of our government is all shut down, but most retail businesses are operating as normal. Apparently, it's a great day to buy a mattress, just like our founding fathers would do on this day. I don't know what that's related to, but, you know, welcome to America. Our friend Oystein with a 100 Norwegian kroner super chat. Right on. Thank you, as always, Oystein. They're in Norway. Good to see you. And I certainly appreciate all of you hanging out with us today. And we look forward to seeing our members tomorrow. Every Monday at 1 o'clock, we do members-only videos. And those who support us here, so we don't have to have traditional sponsorships, enable us to buy equipment and have opinions that don't have any ramifications of financial punishment from companies. We're remaining financially independent because of our members, and in return for that, we make videos just for the members live every Monday, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. If you're not a member, I hope you'll consider supporting us in that way. It helps us a lot to maintain our independence. That'll wrap it up, and I will see you all. I'll see all your members tomorrow, 1 o'clock as always. Until then, bye for now.